data center, and everywhere in between. Together, let's accomplish something wonderful.
At Capital One, we combine the power of a machine learning model with a cloud-based multi-region infrastructure, making banking better by strengthening the reliability of our mobile app so that our customers can stay connected to their money anywhere. Learn how we're using a cloud-native architecture to fuel the future at CapitalOne.com/cloud. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
The world seems to be spinning faster. New technologies are accelerating our lives. The markets are changing faster and faster. New products and services are disrupting old ones, and huge companies are disappearing. We all feel the speed and the need to compete. Our demands have increased in our private and business lives. We want instant answers and no waiting time. Time is the most valuable asset of human beings. Nobody wants to waste it for poor service. Customer experience has become a crucial competitive factor. Cognigy makes life easier for everyone and service a magical experience. We will help you to improve your service quality and cut costs at the same time. Our platform based on AI delivers personalized experiences at scale. Conversational service automation is the future of customer service. Cognigy AI. No time to waste.
AI itself is at an inflection point, and for a decade, we have set the pace for innovation unmatched anywhere in the market. Together, we're pushing the limits of both human and machine.
The power of AI is now in the hands of anyone that can use it.
We're pushing the limits of how AI can become even more aligned to the needs of every business.
we're seeing a fundamental shift towards making AI more accessible, faster, and impactful for businesses.
Tools like Data Robot can offer us an awful lot of potential.
How is our collaboration helping our customers?
This opportunity to build turnkey solutions that help customers accelerate their time to value.
Complete enterprise operations for all parts of the model lifecycle.
You can ensure that you'll never be in the dark when it comes to tackling AI bias.
Welcome to Data Robot AI Experience 2022.
AstraDB, a flexible database as a service built on the open source Apache Cassandra project. It's a NoSQL distributed database that is known for its high scalability and availability. Data is partitioned and distributed around a cluster in separate nodes to increase performance, and replicated to ensure your data is always available. You can interact with your data using REST, GraphQL, and document APIs using Stargate.io, an open source data layer included in AstraDB, or directly with the Cassandra query language in a CQL console. It comes with a generous free tier to get started, and setting up a database is simple. Just log in with an email, Google or GitHub account, select Create Database, give it a database name, key space name, and select the cloud provider and region you prefer. That's it. You now have a 3-node Cassandra cluster in less than 5 minutes. For more information on AstraDB, check out the other videos in our AstraDB playlist. If you want to learn more about Cassandra, check out our Intro to Cassandra crash course or catch one of our weekly workshops. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.
Labelbox is a training data platform designed to help you iterate better. Use active learning to find model errors and prioritize labeling high-value data to improve performance. Accelerate velocity through collaboration, labeling automation, and low-code model training integrations. The result is a streamlined workflow, high-quality data, and consistently more accurate models in less time for less spend. We're trusted by Fortune 500 enterprises and leading companies fueled by AI. Try Labelbox for free today.
How does change happen? How did a revelation by an 18th century English physician usher in the dawn of immunology and the modern vaccines that today protect everyone you know? How did two brothers with a boyhood dream to defy the law of gravity launch an era of flight where 6 million of us now take to the skies every day? How did the need for collaboration at 4 leading universities set the cornerstone of the internet that today digitally connects us to the totality of human understanding? In the tradition of these breakthroughs, NTT Research tackles the most challenging scientific questions of our time in an effort to further humanity and the lives of us all. Every day, we strive to create a smarter world for the greater good. Because at NTT Research, our mission is not just to change the world, it's to upgrade reality.
Wonderful, folks. Main stage. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1. Affirmative.
Keep going, baby.
Still rising. Recorders on.
Keep going. Look at her go, hon.
There's greatness inside you, just waiting to be uncovered. It's a journey, a change in mindset. So let's get going. Let's grow with engaging content and a learning experience designed to help you be a better you. This is a commitment to continuous learning in an ever-changing world. Because you're an asset worth investing in. You are invaluable. Find the greatness inside you with Skillsoft.
Hey, I'm Joe, and Graph plus AI is transforming the world and is with me every day of my life. From the time I get up, Google, what does my commute to work look like?
32 minutes with moderate traffic.
To knowing my payment is secure when I buy a cup of coffee. And when it's time for my meeting, I can see how I'm connected to the customer on LinkedIn and which connections we have in common. I can even check the latest shoes for my training session. More importantly, I'll know when it's time to buy the return gifts for Danny's birthday next month. And when I'm back home, I can find the next big show to binge on after the season finale of Westworld. As you can see, I've been doing it all with a graph, from the time I wake up until the end of the day. Welcome to the age of graph.
Hello, have you met Typeform? If you want to grow your business, you should. Typeform is redefining how brands and people connect in the digital world with vibrant forms, surveys, quizzes, and asynchronous video solutions designed to keep the conversation going so you can engage with new and existing customers simply, seamlessly, beautifully, leading to more responses, higher completion rates, and the data you need to accelerate growth. It's that simple. Want to learn more? Say hello to Typeform.
Okay, well, welcome to Transform 2022, and it's day 2 of the AI and Edge Week. Of course, you'll know by now if you missed any of the content from yesterday's sessions, or last week's in-person event, or the virtual Data Week content, it's all available on demand for you right now. Click into the sessions to get access to the content within that session. Of course, thank you so much to all of you. We're super excited to have 3,000 attendees registered and joining virtually. And as you know, we've split this year's virtual event content into 6 days and 6 topics. Today's summit will cover conversational AI, IVA, and NLP. That's a lot of acronyms, right? So, of course, this event would not be possible without the tremendous support from all of our incredible sponsors. Thank you to all of them for sponsoring this great event and providing great content for you, our wonderful audience. Of course, this event is being hosted on an interactive platform. You can connect with other attendees. Don't forget, you can create your own schedule by starring your must-attend sessions. When you do that, you're going to find them under My Interests, and you'll find that on top of the agenda. You can meet other attendees, of course, using the network navigation above. We've got the full and entire attendee list in there so that you can find super interesting people just like you and chat with them and set up meetings and collaborate and do all sorts of wonderful things. Of course, visit the sponsor profiles through the sponsor navigation above. Check out all their latest content, reports, white papers, launches, and products. There's a huge amount of value in there just for you. And of course, you'll remember the more sessions that you view, the more sponsor profiles you go check out, the more games that you play. You're earning points all the time for the leaderboard. You can check out the leaderboard and see where you are. And if you want to, you can, of course, interact even more to push yourself up that leaderboard, because we're going to be giving away some great, great prizes to the people at the top. So if you want to ask questions at any point during the sessions, remember to use that type chat box on the right-hand side of the session. If the speaker is available to answer your questions, they're going to be waiting for you, and they'll be able to reply to all the burning questions that are shooting through your mind every single session. And if you want more information about how best to utilize this very platform, we've put together a great, quick how-to video, and you'll find that right in the agenda. We're almost at the end of my personal campaign to bring back the hashtag, and we need your help. So the official Transform hashtag, as I'm sure you know by now, is hashtag VBTransform. Join the conversation by using hashtag VBTransform anywhere you can use hashtags, or tag us at VentureBeat, of course. All right, so let's get this day kicked off. Click into the next session at 9 a.m. Pacific to see the very first session of the day. It's a panel discussion on the future of AI-based customer service with Cognigy, Mobily, and Talking Points. Well, welcome to this great panel discussion on the future of AI-based customer service, which is, of course, a great way to kick off the Conversational AI, IVA, and NLP Summit. Our very own Dan Muse from VentureBeat discusses with Philip Heldervig, CEO and co-founder of Cognigy, Mubarak Ayabi, Digital Experience GM of Mobily, and David Mickles, founder and principal analyst of Talking Points. And they're going to talk about what are the best practices and what's next for AI-based customer service. I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions from this discussion, so head to the type chat box on the right. But in the meantime, over to you, Dan.
Thank you for attending Transform and today's session, The Future of AI-Based Customer Service. I'm Dan Muse, Content Director and Managing Editor at VentureBeat, and we're excited to present this panel today. Oftentimes, conversations around AI are aspirational or futuristic, not with today's session. It's real world, it's happening today, and companies need to be moving forward with their conversational AI and self-service approaches if they aren't already. We're fortunate to have three great panelists today who are well-versed in the topic, and I'm confident are also very opinionated and have great thoughts about where this topic is going. So I would just give folks a chance to introduce themselves, their company, and what they do. So we'll start with Mubarak. Can you tell us a little bit about your company and your role?
Thanks, Dan, for having me and the team here on this show. And my name is Mubarak Al-Harbi. I'm the General Manager of Digital Experience in Mobily, which is the second largest telecom company in Saudi Arabia. And I'm looking for the development aspects from IT side for the digital channels, including the other digital platforms and the APIs and so on.
Mubarak. Phil, can you talk a little bit about Cognigy and your role there?
Yeah, thanks for having us on the call here today. My name's Phil. I'm one of the co-founders of Cognigy. We are producing Cognigy AI, a customer service and contact center AI platform. And yeah, super happy to be here today and talk about conversational AI.
Thanks, Phil. And Dave, can you talk about your firm and your industry experience, which I know is vast?
Well, thank you, Dan. My name is Dave Michaels. Spelling is always a challenge with me. There's no A in Michaels. My company is Talking Points. There's a Z on the end, not an S. And it's a research firm. I focus on enterprise communications, and I'm the principal analyst responsible for, contact center, customer service, and of course, conversational AI technologies. So great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. And we'll get started now with some questions. And I do have obviously questions prepared for all of you, but we also want this to be dynamic and to flow freely. So, certainly if you have comments about things that our panelists are saying, definitely raise your hand and we can don't have to stick to a script. But I'll start though first with a question for Phil. I think just to help set the stage and to make sure that we're all kind of talking the same thing, can you give us a definition of what conversational AI is today?
Sure. Maybe before we dive into conversational AI, we should actually look at what is self-service and how does conversational AI play in that whole field, right? So if you look at self-service, it essentially means empowering the customer to solve a query or an issue that they have themselves without the intervention of human agents, right? So if you have a certain question for a company, or if you want to achieve something like maybe canceling a booking or changing a ticket or something like that, you can be offered self-service options to do this yourself without having to call in and wait and speak to an agent to help you with it. Now, self-service can be achieved in a number of ways, and one of those is through conversational AI. Now, what is conversational AI? Conversational AI is an umbrella term that describes various flavors of artificial intelligence that can be used in conversations with humans. So when you look at what these systems can do, they can understand human speech, they can assign meaning to what the customer, in our case, says, and they can hold a coherent conversation with humans, right? Including conversation context, knowing about what was said before, knowing information about the customer, and in that way, having a very natural feeling conversation with the customer, right? And all of this can be done on chat, and it can also be done on voice. And I think that is very important to understand. Conversational AI is not a fancy new word for chatbots, right? It's much, much more than that. It's really the ability to communicate with humans in natural language, whether that is spoken and by the human that heard natural language, or whether that is chat-based natural language. And these conversational AIs don't just give pre-scripted answers, but they can also interact with business systems, for example, in real time. So if I have a question about an order that I've placed, the conversational AI will understand what I want, go into a system that holds information about my order, retrieve that information, and then give me the information that I was seeking. So it's a much more advanced, holistic system that makes use of this flavor of artificial intelligence, which is called conversational AI.
Right. Thanks, Phil. I think we'll probably come back to sort of that topic in a bit, but I also wanted to move on to Mubarak in terms of, Mobley and what you're doing. And I know omni-channel conversational AI is something that you guys focus on. Can you give us a little description of, or some context for what omni-channel conversational AI is and how it benefits the customer?
Yeah, for sure. As Phil explained about the conversational AI as a capability that has the ability to receive the conversations and the input from different type of channels. Nowadays, our customers exist in the social media and some of the other messaging platforms, and they prefer to use these channels in their daily life. And as a mobile, and as part of our strategy to keep a good user experience and customer experience, we want to enable those type of customers that they prefer these type of channels to be served there without taking them from their preferred channels to that traditional channels, such as the web and the portal and the other type of channels. And for us to implement such capability, we need a conversational AI that has the ability to integrate with all these type of channels. So once we build one conversations, it can be exposed as is to multiple channels. This will give us a wide range of channels that allow us to reach a wide range also of customers and serve them there. And this is what we call it the omni-channel. And today, this is what we did by using Cognigy as part of our ecosystem, in addition to the other aspect of the ecosystem, to aggregate all these type of inputs from the social channels in Twitter, for example, Facebook and Instagram, and also from the traditional messaging platforms such as the SMS and so on, and consider it as one type of input, the conversational AI platform, and we connect this platform also with the internal systems, and we enabled around right now 20 self-service for the customers. So the customers today, they can use the WhatsApp to explore these 20 services. And an example of these services is the payment. Customer that he can pay his bill using WhatsApp without going to mobile app or mobile portal, and completely he's doing these services by his own without any need to have a human agent assistance. Yeah.
Thanks, Barak. And I guess just to kind of touch back briefly on conversational AI and where it is today, and Dave, this is for you from your kind of, I guess, broader perspective of the market. What do you see in terms of, like, is there consistency across products? Are some people calling chatbots conversational AI? In my mind, they seem to be different, but so what are you seeing in definitions and implementations?
Everything is AI. No matter what you want to ask me about, the answer is AI. In enterprise communications, we've got, meetings have background substitution, messaging, suggested replies, but the contact center is where most AI is happening in enterprise communications. And but even in the contact center, there's a whole bunch of different AIs. Conversational AI is a whole nother bucket of things like chatbots and things like what we call augmented agent. And there's an incredible amount of variation, and it's confusing because people just, there's an incredible amount of variation of products and solutions out there. And so you've got the quality of the AI, or the quality of the natural language understanding. You've got the overhead or the processes involved in making this useful for a particular implementation. This could be the training, this could be setup, this could be ongoing improvement. So there's a whole bunch of different vendors out there with that make this either simple or hard or various degrees. And then there's the voice versus text, whether you're going to talk to this thing or whether you're going to type at this thing. And even that, if you decide to type at it, then you've got all these different channels. I want to type at it through a web interface. I want to type at it through Facebook. I want to type through it using WhatsApp. And so there's all these different channels out there. And so so there's a lot of variation out there when you talk to vendors about we have an AI solution or we have a chatbot solution. There's just so many questions. And a lot of these solutions out there are actually built for just like one use case. Maybe this particular solution is good for text on Facebook to answer a certain kind of question, and that's it. And then some solutions, in fact, like Cognigy, is more of a platform that's intended to go across a whole bunch of different environments. So, and then one other point I'll make is the cost models. A lot of these things have a charge per inquiry, and some of them have a flat, just on the technology, and you get to use it as many ways as you want. So just an incredible amount of variation in the market right now.
Dave. And I guess this might be a question that you all want to chime in on, but start with Phil in terms of, the hybrid model seems to be something that, is pervasive, that, the coexistence, for lack of a better word, of human agents and AI-based agents, exists. How is that handled in terms of like, when do you move from one to the other? How is that decision made? Transparent to the user? Do they know they're switching from human to AI or vice versa?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And I mean, the main question that maybe some viewers will be asking themselves is, well, why do we need a hybrid model, right? It's an AI, it can answer everything, right? And that, of course, we need to be realistic, right? It's a software that has been trained to understand human language, but it will not understand everything, right? It will understand a large part of the things your customers are saying if it's trained for that, but it will not ever understand everything. Well, maybe not ever is a big claim, right? Maybe in the future we will have such AIs. Right now, it will only understand the things it's been trained for. And once the AI does not know the answer, I think you create a really bad customer experience by just constantly saying, well, I didn't understand that, please rephrase. I didn't understand that, please rephrase. But instead, you should actually be then handing over the conversation to a human agent who can help. I'm always for transparency. I think transparency creates a better customer experience, not just when handing over to the human agent, but also right at the start when the customer is interfacing with an artificial intelligence, right? Whether that's a chatbot or a voice, but it doesn't matter. Because what it does, it creates a frame for the conversation where the customer then speaks in a certain way and might actually explain things in a simpler way so that the AI has a better chance of understanding, right? So I would say be transparent right at the start. Hey, I'm a chatbot, I'm a voice bot, I'm an AI to help you. And if I can't help you, then there's always the option to speak with a human agent. Now, and that's the thing. Is it a bad thing if we need to hand over to a human agent, right? Do we lose our ROI? Well, actually, we don't. Say you have a process that takes 10 steps, and the AI can do 5 of those steps, and then it fails and hands over to a human agent. The key is then to actually hand over, we call that a warm handover, to hand over to the human agent whilst providing the human agent with the whole history of what has already happened, right? Maybe via a summary or maybe via a transcript, so that the human agent does not have to start from scratch, because that again would break the customer experience, right? And so we believe in the past, there was a lot of experiences where chatbots did not know the answer and there was no way to get the right answer from a human agent either. And that created a negative image, I think. Whereas now, when we talk about conversational AI solutions, firstly, are they much more powerful than in the past, using true machine learning and true AI algorithms. But secondly, the integration with human agents working hand in hand actually helps a lot. And if I may say one more thing, so that is the bot handing over to the human agent. But even when the conversation has been handed over to the human agent, you can still use conversational AI technology, which is listening into the human-to-human conversation in the background and providing the agent with information in real time, right? So if the customer says, yeah, I'm inquiring about my order, and the human agent says, "What's your order number, please?" And it's, yeah, it's 1165958. Then a bot in the background can listen in, detect that number, pull up the order information, and surface the information to the human agent without the human agent having to do anything. So that's something we call agent assist. And that is, I think, one of the really, really exciting applications of conversational AI at the moment.
Cool. Thanks, Phil. And in your real world use, Mubarak, in terms of how you guys operate, is there like defined points at which you make that handover, and sort of at what point, what triggers that move in your situation?
Actually, in the current implementation that we made, we focused on enabling all the majority that we have in the other channels in the app into the chatbot for those customers in the social channels. And because we enabled that, the customers has huge list of services that sometimes it's difficult for him to explore these services. So we make it within the conversation as an introduction that if you need any help at any time, just write this keyword and you will be handed over to the agent. And as Philip said, it is completely transparent for the agent, because the setup that we made, it's show the complete conversations between the agent, the customer and the chatbot, and also the human agent and the customer as well. So we will be able also to pull the agents to hand over back to the chatbot. So the chatbot also can take the conversation and continue for more automation and more use cases for the customer himself, and not just making the agent busy with that customer until he closes his case. This has helped us a lot to give more time to the human agents for doing training for the bot, instead of just replying only to the customers. No, we use their time to keep training the bot and enhance it. And we saw good satisfaction nowadays about using the chatbot. And I just saw today a slide talking about 81% as a satisfaction.
Thanks, Mubarak. And I guess, Dave, from your perspective and the research you've done and things you've seen, do you find there's any difference if people have a preference? Do some people prefer a chatbot or a conversational AI agent versus a human?
Oh, actually, you would think that a human would always be preferable, but it's surprisingly not the case. There's a lot of situations where dealing with some sort of automated technology is preferable. And you think about it, just the simple things of, if you go back to the IVR days of the telephone systems, checking your bank accounts, bank account balance. You don't necessarily want a human to look at your account. You just want to get the information. So that kind of logic still carries over. And there's, test results, any kind of private information that you want could be preferable to get through a bot. I find a lot of times that I prefer a bot. Now there's a lot of times I prefer a human too. So it's important to kind of know. But if you're trying to do something, perhaps in the middle of the night, perhaps something that you should be able to do on your own, you don't necessarily want help. And so there's a lot of situations where people would prefer to have a machine handle their inquiries.
Actually, if I may add something there, sometimes it's also a question of compliance, right? Is the human agent allowed to take your credit card information, right? And we have a lot of cases where there might be a bot in the beginning that identifies the customer, and the customer's intent hands over to the human agent. The agent works the case, and then it comes to the payment point, right? And at that payment point, they hand it back to the bot because the agent is not allowed to take that payment information. And then in the transcripts, the information can be redacted, but with the information the customer has given, the payment can still be processed.
That's a great point. I'm glad you said that. Compliance is a huge one. And another big one actually is multilingual. And so being able to switch to Spanish or switch to French, switch to German, That's a lot to ask of a human agent, and a lot of these conversational bots can do that without thinking twice.
I think,
Please, Mubarak, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for interruption, but it was a very, very important point, which is the compliance that Philip mentioned. And this is what we did exactly in Mobile. For the sensitive information, we didn't share it over social media, but we redirect the customer to a secure website, which is Mobile website, to do the payment and the authentication. And we return him back to Cognigy to continue the conversation seamlessly without any complaints from the customers or feeling insecure.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Because then you keep the sensitive part, the conversation, the payment, you keep out of the conversation channels as well. Because we have to realize, of course, if you use a web chat, then it's your customer on your website chatting with you. If you're using something like WhatsApp, then all of a sudden you have Meta in the mix, right? Any credit card information entered into WhatsApp is all of a sudden also in the hands of a third party. Right, and that despite the encryption algorithms might be problematic when it comes to compliance. But I wanted to say one thing about the real-time translation, because that is a big piece as well. The bot might be able to speak multiple languages already, but in many cases, the human agents only speak one or two languages. And what you can also do with conversational AI platforms is that you can add real-time translation also to human-to-human communications, right? So a person might be speaking Thai, for example. A customer might be speaking Thai, and our system receives this, auto-translates it into English, and passes that information to the agent. The agent can see both text, the original text, and the translated text in real time. You can answer in English, and it's back translated into Thai. Now, of course, the translations, you can use a number of providers, might not be perfect. But the customer experience is still much better, because otherwise this person who might only speak Thai might not be able to get customer service at all, right? So that's a type of automation that's often overlooked, right? Because it's seemingly simple, but also in that the quality of machine learning algorithms that are now being used for translation purposes also dramatically increased over the past couple of years.
Guys, and I guess I was curious too, from your perspective, Mubarak, and from Phil, as your partnership has developed. Can you just take a couple minutes and talk about sort of what prompted you to make the decision to move this direction, and why Cognigy, and sort of any lessons that you could share with people who might be sort of at that decision point themselves right now?
Yeah, thanks for this question. Actually, myself, I spent 11 months doing a POC and exploration for technology that can help me to run the operating model that Mobile is looking for. Because it's not a matter of technology. There is a lot of solutions and technologies and the way of implementing things. But we chose Cognigy as part of our ecosystem as a conversational AI because it has scalability and the easy integrity with the backend system and also with the social channels and front end. I can say today we success in Mobile to segregate the duties between the different teams, between marketing team to enable more channels, and between CX team to build the conversation by themselves without the need for IT guys to do it, and for the care team to keep training the bot. And by this, we minimize the resistance that it may come from the different teams that they may think that they will lose their job, and we translate the challenge or transfer it to be a chance, and we success in that. Nowadays, we have a kind of virtual team between the different teams, headed by care team as a business unit. And as I said, we reached more than 80% as customer satisfaction for our setup. And also we are adding more services and channels going forward.
Anything to add, Phil, or should we? Otherwise, I can see we're getting short on time, so I can move to the next round.
I think it was a great answer on why Mobile picked Cognigy, right? And what we are telling new prospects that are thinking about adopting a technology like Cognigy, let's just get started, right? This doesn't have to be a $10 million project. We can get started on a pilot. that is very easy to do, and it can take a short time. Because with a platform like Cognigy, you can create proof that the technology works very quickly. And so we would just invite everyone to see for themselves how it works for them. Right.
We only have a couple minutes left. I wanted to give everyone kind of a chance to, to wrap up a bit. And we'll start, Dave, with you. If you could just talk a little bit about, where you think we are in the sort of the stage of this industry and basically what's next.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Was that the question, or were you about to ask me the question? I'm sorry.
No, the question is, what do you see as being next in terms of where we go in conversational AI and self?
Okay. So first off, the technology just keeps on getting better. I mean, again, it's just the amount of excitement and interest in this area is phenomenal. Secondly, the use cases are getting much more varied. We think of customer service. Ford sells cars. People call Ford for customer service around their cars. But a company like Ford has a ton of type of service centers. They're dealing with their dealers. They're dealing with their vendors. They've got purchasing questions. They got all kinds of invoicing questions. So the number of opportunities to use this within a company are just exploding, because there's so many types of when they hear customer service, they think of just the end user, but there's so many types of business interactions that are occurring where there's some sort of service element. And then there's the employee side as well. And so there's so many opportunities within the employee base, everything from training and travel, HR services, and internal help desk. And so we're seeing the use cases completely explode. And we're also seeing the channels completely explode. I mean, there's it often starts with web chat, or it often starts with a basic telephone interface. But we keep on inventing new channels and new ways of communicating. And, one organization implements Slack, another organization implements WebEx, another organization implements, they want to use Facebook Messenger or something like that. And so, or go back to email. And so there's just so many ways that we are seeing this technology morph and expand and adapt. So it's a very exciting time. It's really amazing that, we've talked about this for, I don't know, I think of Star Trek, but we can go back further, where we're talking naturally to computers and getting answers. But it's actually happening now, and it's pretty exciting.
Well, thanks, Dave. And as I knew it happened, 30 minutes was not nearly enough to cover this topic. And of course, we are out of time. I didn't even get a chance to ask you guys about Lambda and sentient stuff and all that. So maybe another session. But thanks to you all for joining. I wish we had more time. And thanks to everyone for attending Transform. And we'll be talking to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Couldn't think of a better way to kick off the first day here with this particular summit. So, Dan, Philip, Mubarak, Dave, thank you so much for all of your expertise. And remember, of course, if you want to get more information on Cognigy, please make sure to go visit their sponsor profile. So the next session coming up discusses how Kaiser Permanente is improving patient CEX and health outcomes with Prat Vimana, Chief Digital Officer of Kaiser Permanente. Click the above link to get access to this session at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Okay, well, welcome to the next session, how Kaiser Permanente is improving patient CEX and health outcomes with AI, ML data, and digital innovation across the patient journey. This is with Prat Vimana, Chief Digital Officer of Kaiser Permanente, and Prat will be discussing with Laurie Scherer, partner of Bain & Company, how they're building a data-driven digital experience that is responsive to member and patient needs and preferences. So please welcome Prat and Laurie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laurie Scherer. I'm a partner in the Bain San Francisco office in the Technology and Advanced Analytics practice. I'm thrilled to be back here at VentureBeat with the topic of customer experience in digital and with our esteemed guest from Kaiser Permanente. Pratt, let me have you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Lori. Pleasure to be with you and talking to VentureBeat audience today as well. Pratt Vimana, I'm the Chief Digital Officer for Kaiser Permanente. Been with Kaiser almost close to 3 years now. It's going to be 3 years. And prior to that, I've led transformation in other industries, retail in particular. I have dual responsibility. I lead all of the strategy to execution, the consumer experiences, as well as have the technology responsibilities at Kaiser Permanente.
That's terrific. Thanks, Pratt. We're so happy to have you. So you did come from another industry. What we're seeing in healthcare, an influx of executives from other industries at a time when the healthcare industry is undergoing quite a bit of digital and data-enabled transformation. So you mentioned you joined 3 years ago. What was that like? And what were you hoping to accomplish in your first 180 days at Kaiser?
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Lori. You're right. Actually, 2011, 12, 13, that's when retail was, harvesting a whole slew of chief digital officers. And I think it looks like, healthcare is now doing the exact same thing. When I joined just before pandemic, in the first 100 days, I was, pretty much spending a lot of time understanding the industry, understanding the member base, how we operate. Because I came from retail, 10 years of retail work. Healthcare is quite different. So that 100 days flew by very quickly, and then the pandemic just came in. So it was a big pivot for us to think about where do we go from that point onwards. What was what brought me to healthcare, to your question, is I think the mission really was the pull for me, right? The idea of not looking at members, at the time of need, which we do, but going beyond that and see if we could really be in the preventative space, especially with digital being the spearhead there. That was a big motivation and a driver for me. And Kaiser being not-for-profit also was an inspiration that what we can do can be shared broadly and can really influence, health systems worldwide. And I'm seeing that firsthand now in my role. The first 100 days priorities were, especially as the pandemic was kicking in, shifted very quickly towards digital first. How do we actually really be there for our members? Because that was the only modality that was available. And also the acceleration of adoption happened. So then how do we continue to double down and provide the best possible service for them? That was our shift in the first 90 days.
Wow, that must have been quite an exciting time. And we know that the pandemic has put a real wind in the sail of technology enablement of healthcare, which is terrific. So how do you think about the customer, Pratt? Obviously, your major stakeholders and the people who pay the bills, so to speak, are the employers. But you talk about the members as the customer. And you also have the clinicians and the providers in your network. So talk a little bit about who you think of as the customer and how you think about designing, given the fact that you have multiple customers.
Great question, Lori. I think the it was a learning curve for me as I was going through it. We look at 4 key stakeholders. Our members and non-members. Sometimes our patients are not members either as well. So the idea of members and patients, we call them generally consumers. Those are consumers of product and services that Kaiser Permanente offers. And then, that includes some of the communities we serve as well. That's the one customer, one stakeholder group. The other one is our customer broker, which is, that ecosystem that you talked about. People who are actually either whether it's commercial, whether it's exchanges and so on and so forth. The third stakeholder group is our clinicians as well. If one end of the stethoscope is our consumers, the other end of the stethoscope is our physicians and our care teams. So that is a critical stakeholder because these two has to be connected all the time And that is what is very important in healthcare. And then the fourth is our employees, actually. This is an important stakeholder group, because a lot of what happens is putting the power in their hands so that they are as informed as the consumers, because the world is changing very, very fast for the consumers. How do we also make sure that our employees are equipped as well? So we look at these four different stakeholder groups. My first year, very heavy leaning in is in the consumer space, because if we can truly follow them and understand, put them in the middle and design it, and we were able to pull other stakeholders to be able to support the needs of the consumers.
Great. That's really great. So Kaiser Permanente has an advantage, or some say an advantage, over the other health plans, because you actually own the provider networks, the hospitals and the doctors and such. So in a sense, you have a closed system from a data perspective. And just wondering, how do you think about that as an asset that you can leverage to improve the experience of the stakeholders you just talked about?
Great question. Again, I'm a big student of the value chain, looking at any industry and looking at the value chain, how integrated the value chain is and the efficiencies within the value chain. Healthcare is one of the most fragmented value chains, among other industries. If you really look at the incentives, I don't know if there is good alignment there. Let's say if you're a payer, you're incentivized to pay, then, your profitability is at question. You're a provider, you're incentivized to treat. That means, you need, the billing starts when somebody is sick, if you will, right? So, and across the board, if you really look at the healthcare system, what differentiates Kaiser Permanente, which is one of the pull for me, is that being an integrated system, being the payer and the provider, as well as the labs and the pharmacy and the whole 360, our incentive is to keep members healthier and live longer, healthier years, which means that we put every asset possible to not only take care of the member needs, not only at the time of the sickness, but also on the preventative side, but do it in a way that is efficient through the process. So it's not uncommon that if I go into, some of our medical office buildings, if I go in to see my primary care, and if I have a skin condition, they would be able to pull a dermatologist right there on a video call, and I can get that done in one sitting, actually, right? So that is possible because of the integrated system. And by the way, I can walk out with the medicines on my way out. That to me is the power that we see, which brings this advantage of really not only understanding the member at the, from a, their personal history and the background and the demographics, but also the family tree all the way through the treatments and the effectiveness and the conditions. So it's a 360-degree view that really makes it a lot more effective to be an integrated system.
That seems like quite an advantage. And it sounds like from a technology standpoint, you're figuring out how to harness that data to really improve the care for the patient. So that's good for the world. When you think about customer engagement, a lot of digital products and services have been built and put into the healthcare space. The most important thing, obviously, is getting that engagement, getting people to come to the solution and interact with it. What things have you built that have proven to be particularly engaging, and how have you found the engagement of your member base in the digital properties that your teams have produced?
Yeah, it's one of those things I was not sure. Healthcare is not one of those things where you go on a daily basis. So I was not sure how the digital engagement was going to be when I joined. Very powerful being an integrated health system. What we are seeing is that we see members coming in to understand their their benefits, or payment of the claims and so on and so forth. We see members coming in for pharmacy and their needs. We see members coming in for their care needs. So what this 360 degrees is helping people bring in for various needs inside the health system, which is making us really one of the most effective digital ecosystems there is. 84% of our members are registered. And what was also interesting for me is in 2021, 94% of them at least logged in once for one reason or other, actually, right? And that cuts across all demographics. When I was looking at the data, maybe Medicare, is not going to be there, was a hypothesis. When you look at it, Medicare is actually in over 80% from a registration rate perspective and engagement perspective as well. What's interesting there is the proxy, right? If I'm I can take care of setting up appointments for my mom or my dad, or for my kids. The idea of proxy access makes it this, one-to-many connections, and that allows all demographics to benefit from the digital capabilities that we are building. So the engagement has been super strong. The question then really becomes, what are they doing when they're coming in? And what else can we be doing better to help them in this process? So when you look at where, it's easy to see that they're coming in to pay the bills and look at their lab, results and, set up appointments. Can we go beyond that? And that's the huge opportunity in healthcare.
And going beyond that means going into actually helping them take better care of themselves and possibly giving them access to clinicians and such as part of the digital experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about the how. Healthcare companies have been among the data-intensive service industries, let's say, one of the slowest to sort of adopt good data management practices. There's been lots of systems challenges with that and such. There's also lots of data issues around governance, privacy, bias in models, et cetera. Love to hear about how you have tackled those issues at Kaiser and what you think the current state of play is in terms of the maturity, both of Kaiser and the industry.
Yeah, no, it's a data is the oil. You hear different ways of describing. Data is truly the unlock that healthcare really needs. What's interesting is even the standards that are defined, the interoperability standards for data exchange and all that, doesn't go too far enough to define what is the right standard, and how do we, if you bring in two different health systems, it's almost like, two different languages, right? Even though they both are saying same words, we have a long way to go to actually bring multiple data sources and stitch it together so that we can really make it easy for the patient to see what their history is over a longitudinal path. What Kaiser Permanente has advantage is that we've been one of the early systems to adapt to EHR nationally, which means that we have the health records way back when, some folks say that we in fact started that wave of EHR. And not only that, standardizing the workflows across the care delivery system. Let's say if you're going in, you want to get an antibiotic for something, that whole thing is streamlined so that no two doctor needs to figure out, every step of how do you get there. That level of standardization, what that allows us to do is collect this data. What we needed to do is that lean in and bring the data into one place so that we can actually create that 360 and also be there in the modern technology stack. It's we needed to get to the cloud, for example. So we had to create data lake that brought all the data into one place. We have complete modernized AI infrastructure now to be able to model and deploy and so on and so forth. So this whole idea of not only bringing the data, but bringing the data and use it and do something about it. I think that's been one of the biggest unlocks that we needed to go through in this next wave of healthcare transformation. And we are very well underway in doing that as well. While we do this, one of the other parts to this is also looking at governance model around data bias and how do we make sure that we have the right governance around what we are modeling, what we are deploying, and making sure that we have the right checks and balances from every aspect of it. So that needs to be evolved, and that's being put in place as well. So it is definitely a journey, but the how really mattered. You can have the vision, but if we cannot have the modern ways of doing, software development and deployment, it just becomes an idea and just a slide, a PowerPoint slide. It never sees the daylight.
Yes. Yes, it's quite a long road to go from the PowerPoint slide to reality. So sounds like you've traveled quite a long distance. But speaking of that and carrying on in that vein, as you think about developing these digital solutions and building out the digital footprint, how have you had to change the operating model? In other words, how the company actually works together. We've heard a lot about having lean agile teams and user-centered design and so on and so forth. How big of an investment did you have to make in sort of changing the ways of working in order to get great experiences to market quickly?
It was one of the key unlocks, I would say, for us to get, because the ideas can change, and ideas are going to change for sure, because the members, their expectations as they continues to evolve, we need to follow them and figure this out. But the how could be much more structured in a way that it can be streamlined. So digital at some point, was funded by like 50, 60 projects, right? So each one could come up with a capability or a need, and get, as long as you have a positive NPV IRR, you're going to get it done, and you got a business case and you go. From there, we needed to completely pivot and create a consumer-based taxonomy. Like, what does it mean to look at it from a consumer-first approach? How do we help them navigate to the right care? How do we help them receive care? How do I help the consumer to manage their condition end to end? That's a consumer-centric taxonomy that we were able to put in place. Not only that, it required us to actually create a new operating model that also needed new governance structure. So creating purpose-built teams, waking up, if I'm a product manager, if I'm focused on, I'm going to build the best possible type 2 diabetes experience management in the country, period, right? If I know that as my single purpose, if I can attach to that product manager the best experts. We have one of the top physicians in the country who are doing much advanced work, whether it's remote patient monitoring or whatnot in the type 2 diabetes space. Bring them together along with the right technology and create almost to the level of ceremonies. What is the weekly, what's the daily, what's the monthly, and the decision rights, who has what kind of decision right. We needed to go to that level to create this new operating model. When we created that new operating model, the unlock has been just incredible. When you look at what we've been able to do in this last 1 year, we moved from on-prem to cloud within 9 months. Our on-prem cloud to Azure cloud. We were able to actually deploy over few hundred features across the board. But in the end, what we see is that customer satisfaction went up. Our app rating went from 3.3 to 4.4. We saw that our rankings went up in every possible industry indexes as well. All of that, not because we had multiple steering committees, 50 other people watching them, because we empowered the teams, put in an operating model that they can actually move fast and get that done.
Incredible. It sounds like an incredible result story, and congratulations on having such a big impact in such an important industry. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Lori. Pleasure to be here.
That was truly wonderful. Thank you so much to Lori and Pratt for such an awesome conversation. So our next session is how leaders can use AI to mitigate risk and drive revenue with Honeywell, Johnson Controls, in conversation with Aviso AI. So click that above link to access this session. All right, so in this next session, Amita Pandey, EVP of Strategy and CMO from Aviso AI, talks to Charles Forsgard, VP Global Sales of Honeywell, and Brian Young, former Chief Commercial Officer of Johnson Controls, about how AI is helping them to transform their sales and customer engagement culture. Over to Amit.
Hello and welcome to VentureBeat Transform 2022. My name is Amit Pandey and I head strategy and growth at Avizo. Our session here today will focus on two things: driving predictable growth and mitigating risk. Both topics are top of mind for CEOs today. In fact, the Chief Executive Magazine survey that came out just last month says that CEO confidence among American CEOs is right now at 5.5 on 10, the lowest it's been in the last 10 years. The good news is that we have an extraordinary panel here today to help us with looking at exactly these two issues. I'd like to quickly welcome Charles Fosgard, Lori Harmon, and Brian Young, who I'll be introducing next. These leaders have been at the forefront of helping boards and CEOs navigate exactly these two issues, driving predictable growth and managing risk. And they've done it across Fortune 500 companies, as well as they've done it across high-tech and high-growth companies in the US and internationally. First, I'd like to introduce Lori Harmon. Lori is the Vice President of Business Development at Cloudflare. Prior to Cloudflare, Lori was Vice President of Global Renewal Sales, Digital Sales, and Customer Success at NetApp. Lori is also the author of the book, 42 Rules for Building a High-Velocity Inside Sales Team. Welcome, Lori. Next, I'd like to introduce Brian Young. Brian is an advisor, investor, and board member at several deep technology companies. Most recently, Brian was the Global Chief Commercial Officer at Johnson Controls. Previously, Brian was Chief Commercial Officer at Tyco, and he's had a distinguished career in sales and business leadership positions, including for 28 years at 3M. Welcome, Brian. Last but not least, I'd like to welcome Charles Fosgard from Honeywell. I've been a fan of Charles since I first came across his book 6 years ago. Like Lori, Charles is an author. His book is titled, Stop Kidding Yourself. The Way You're Managing Your Salespeople is Not Helping Them. Other than being an author, Charles is the Global Vice President for Sales at Honeywell. And prior to Honeywell, Charles was the GM for Sales at GE Automation and Controls. And he also has had a distinguished career across sales and business leadership positions at Schneider Electric. Charles, Brian, and Lori, welcome to this session. I'd like to kick us off, with you first, Brian. And, I'd like to start with the current environment. In your view, what makes the current business environment different from when the pandemic started? And how do you see decision makers buy software differently in this environment?
Yes, thank you, Amit. It's great to be here with you and the group. I guess I'd start by saying, if you think back to January of 2020, I was leading a sales force globally of about 10,000 people, and if you'd have told me at that time that by the end of April we would be in an entirely virtual selling motion, I probably would have passed out. We when the world kind of shut down in March, we grounded the sales force and said, you're not going out anymore, and everything's got to be virtual. And it was actually remarkable how quickly we spun up a virtual sales model. But as we learned through that pandemic, lost without the face-to-face sale, and started to get into, or certainly as myself, as I started to get introduced to new technologies that could enable the sales process in a more virtual world. I think what you've been seeing over the last, I'll call it 18 months, is companies looking to, again, enhance that virtual model, even though we're going back to face-to-face and perhaps a hybrid mode. Technologies that can enhance the virtual selling model, things like Avizo, where they close that were created by losing that face-to-face sale, or the direct coaching, side-by-side coaching, work with a sales manager and a salesperson. So I think you see a lot of sales leaders and executives looking for technologies to speed up and enhance the sales process, drive productivity, and enhance growth.
Charles, what has been your experience with what seems to be different and similar to 2 years ago?
Well, the interesting thing, and much like Brian, if you had told me in February that by April we'd be 100% virtual, I would have been thinking you were smoking something. But it was a very fast change. The interesting thing is, for us, a lot of counterintuitive things happened, because when we went to virtual and we stopped traveling, the net number of customer touches went up. In fact, for us, the net number of customer touches went up by 3x. The interesting thing for us was that increased number of customer touches, planned and followed up on customer touches, led to a 1.5x increase in deal creations and deal closures. So our business has grown tremendously despite that. Now that's led to all the different challenges that we have had to deal with for supply chain and inflation and everything. But because my business has got some software, but it's primarily hardware. But it's not what you would have expected at all. But when you think about it in hindsight, it does make a lot of sense. If we're touching customers more, you're going to be doing more things and getting more business. But with that much more stuff in play, that's where software tools for the sales force become that much more important, because the most important thing the sellers need now is focus.
Building on that point about focus, Lori, what are your thoughts on this question?
Well, I completely agree with the comments that Charles and Brian made. So just to add to that, I would say clearly the pandemic created a lot of uncertainty, but many companies, as Charles mentioned, benefited from that because they had more touches for customers, or maybe they benefited because they were a vendor that were helping companies to set up their remote sales forces. And so I think that uncertainty actually panned out well. And I know what I saw last year is a lot of growth where I was. But now that we're going into recession, there's more uncertainty, but it's a different kind of uncertainty because companies are pulling back on their spending. So I think that also makes tools much more important, especially AI-based tools that can help companies determine what is our forecast. Are reps really going to be able to understand quickly the macroeconomic environment that's going to affect their deals? Probably not, because there's so much information required in figuring that out. So it makes AI-based forecasting, like that provided by Aviso, so much more important as we go into this new level of uncertainty. Uncertainty with the pandemic before, and now the uncertainty with the recession.
Ori, I love that line, a different kind of uncertainty. And if we can stay with you for the shift gears to our next topic, which is, so in this different kind of uncertainty, what would you say revenue leaders need to do to align their sales plays and selling motions to better align with these B2B buyers, many of whom are incredibly digitally savvy as well?
Well, there's a lot, right? There's a lot that they can do. So if you look at the journey, the customer journey, and how we get to closing deals with customers, I think that we need to look at the beginning, right? You need to figure out, like when you're getting in leads, how are they scored properly? So that if you have a sales development or business development team, they can know which leads to focus on, as Charles was saying about number of touches, like do I do 20 touches for this lead and 5 touches for this lead? Then you take it into companies that are doing digital selling. So when you get into a digital purchase, what if your customer somehow gets confused, right? When do you insert a human into that process and help them get over that line to buy digitally, even though it should be hands off? Sometimes it's not. And as you move further into more people-led or field-led sales or virtual-led sales, where more salespeople are involved, it's even more important to have the right technology so you're focusing your salespeople on the right deals. So for example, AI technology can say, I have a $1 million deal and I have a $500,000 deal. And naturally, what a salesperson is going to do is they're going to focus all their time on the $1 million deal. But what if that deal's already in the bank, right? What if they really need to spend more time on the $500,000 deal so they get both? The only way for them to figure something like that out is to have AI-based technology to give them those indicators to say, hey, you need to spend more time on this deal. This deal's in the bank, and you just need to give up on this third deal because it's not happening right now. Because time is so precious for salespeople. I think it's a Gartner metric that says customers only spend 17% of the time with a salesperson. So let's say they're looking at 3 different solutions. That's 17 divided by 3. All their other time is spent online doing research. And so much of their decision is made before they get to your sellers. So the sellers need to be spot on when to contact, who to contact, and what deals to focus on to make them and to maximize their efficiency in terms of closing deals.
Right.
So, I mean, I could go on, but I need to get the other participants in here because there are so many things I could say about technology and helping sellers today.
Lori, I love those statistics. I was thinking, it's 1 in 6 minutes. Gosh, it's 1 in 18 minutes. You have very little time as a vendor to be in the actual discussion process. Brian, what has been your experience, not just from Johnson Controls, but also all the startups that you're advising that are going through some of the same challenges that Lori shared from her experience with high tech?
Yeah, I think, again, as we shift the sales motion, it's all about speed and productivity and leverage on your spend, right? So, from a selling leadership perspective, from a seller perspective, enabling the sales process as most efficiently as possible. I think the other thing that you're seeing is, and I think Lori touched on it a bit, is the concept of team selling, and as the buyer is working through, the buyer is working through their journey, the selling process along that journey involves a lot of different stakeholders on the sales team, if you will. Maybe a technical resource, maybe a sales resource, maybe a support resource, maybe an executive resource touch point. But enhancing that sales process with tools that allow the sales team to collaborate, and I'll use the Aviso term, swarm around the customer. I think that's a really critical part of our new sales process.
Charles, would love to hear your view on this question as well.
I'll tell you, you can just take everything that Lori said and then just put my name next to it, because I agree 1,000%. And particularly the thing, and I probably made a weird face when she said it, talk about you got someone who's trying to figure out how to make it to their number. They gravitate automatically to the biggest deal in the pipe. And that is often the wrong deal to gravitate. And personally, the biggest thing that I've gotten out of using predictive analytics in deals is talking to the sellers from two perspectives. One, what are the deals you should be focusing on to make your number? What are the ones that have the best chances? But then two, what are the ones that you might think you've got in the bag, but that actually the AI thinks has some risks? And one of the most critical things you get out of a good AI tool like Aviso is it doesn't just give you a score, it tells you why. And the opportunity for really productive coaching conversations between the sales manager and the seller, which is really, if you're doing this, should be your whole intent, is how do I do better coaching? The tool's telling you right off the bat, hey, these are 4 things that look funky with this deal or that look great with this deal. And it can help the sales manager really effectively coach the seller on how to think about the deal better. And if they're doing it right, they're doing it Socratically and saying, hey, the AI says this. Why do you think it might be saying that? And then what do you think you could do about it? And as you draw that out of the seller, if they say what the answer is, then it's their idea, not yours. And they're that much more likely to go along with it. And so what I found with a tool like Aviso, the biggest thing it gives me is I'm getting better and better coaching conversations going on between the sales managers and the sellers.
Thank you, Charles. I'm reminded of so many of the concepts around seller-centered design that you'd originally covered in your first book. I hope you do a version 2 of it now, post all these changes that are happening in the world. Shifting gears to our next topic, Charles, I'd like to stay with you and build upon this. We're getting into some of the juiciest bits of not only how AI can be used in the sales function, but how in all your cases you've been seeing the power of AI and predictive analytics for many years now. And it's not exotic anymore. It's mainstream, and people who are not using it are in fact behind the 8 ball. So my question to you would be that when you look at areas like sales forecasting, team coaching, or customer collaboration, where do you see the future of how AI can further help? And building upon some of your practical experience with AI technologies such as Aviso, what are some of the actual benefits and ROI that you've seen at a business of the scale of Honeywell?
So, I mean, just from a straight ROI, and it's never just the tool, right? It's the whole process that you're using the tool with. I reminded of the old thing, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So you got to be careful how you use it. I think the biggest trick with it is never making it feel like Big Brother to the sales team. They have to look at it as a tool for them, not a tool for management to beat them up with. And as you do that, I think it puts you in a position to engage a broader part of the organization in deals. And the reason I say that is it makes it that much easier for everybody to get a sense of what's going on with the deal without these super long briefings. People can kind of read in the tool what's going on. I think from the future right now, you've got a certain segment of sales and sales management that have embraced the concept. Some people have it and they've kind of caught up to that degree, but they haven't figured out yet how to use it, how to make it part of their operating system, so to speak. So really, in the medium term, I see more and more people finding the way it fits with their sales operating system. But I think in the long term, the bigger benefit, and we've started to see this at Honeywell, is it makes it that much easier for me to engage engineering, to engage supply chain in the deals, particularly the bigger deals, which in the past might have been done more, hey, the glorious sales team will go out and bring home this big elephant, and then everybody has to figure out how the heck we're going to build it, right? And instead, we're doing it much more collaboratively. And it's an interesting thing. Every quarter we do a town hall and we talk about the big deals that were won. And every time the story we tell about how that deal was won, it's never about just the seller. It's always about all the different parts of the organization that came together as a team to do it. And what I'm starting to see now is we get more and more people into a tool like a Viso, which is so much more accessible than Salesforce for a non-seller to get at the information. We're getting more and more people looking at the deals and offering insights on them. And I think that's really where the future is, because Aviso is so much more accessible than conventional CRMs. It just makes it easier for everybody to see what's going on with the deal and engage on it.
It takes several villages to close a deal. I'd love to kind of reflect on that, Lori, with some of your experience with teams of all sizes, including business development and SDR teams, and you have this unique lens from the world of high tech. Would love your take on this question.
Well, I'm going to tap into what Brian said about team selling and what Charles said about collaboration, because one of the things that you can do, and this goes back to the ROI, is when in a product like Aviso, you can set up it's either a war room, you could call it a digital selling room. So you could either invite your internal stakeholders, so you're not spending a bunch of time in all these meetings briefing people. They can see all the flow of the deal online in the tool. And that is about rapid collaboration and saving time and getting through more deals and having more time to spend with customers and doing those customer touches. You can also set up like a digital collaboration room with your customers. And right there, you can provide them with quotes. You can provide them with, any information you're sharing, PowerPoints, data sheets. You can see if they're engaged and are they inviting other people to be engaged with your content, so you can really understand the customer engagement. So not only do you have the internal collaboration, you're collaborating with customers in a way that they want to collaborate, because everyone is moving to a more digital environment. And one of the key things for sellers is to help customers when they're dealing with other vendors, right? You've only got the 17% of their time. You kind of want to knock out all the nonsense and only give them what they want to need. So you're making sense of the solution they're buying. And you can do that by providing them the right information in those digital sales rooms that they can consume. And you can understand either through that or through other tools that, like conversational intelligence, that they're engaged or not with your deal and whether they're going to move forward. So I think that's really key to getting quick ROI, is selling the way the buyer wants to buy and quick collaboration with your internal teams and having the AI on top of that to give you those key insights.
Brian, what are some of your thoughts, especially with sampling the different companies that you've been looking at, over the past year, of course, in addition to the transformation you saw at Johnson Controls?
Yeah, so I'll certainly agree and reinforce everything that Charles and Lori said. Whether it be conversational intelligence or forecasting or, collaborative selling, all the tools that are available. As I touched on earlier, in the new sales world, leaders like myself and those on the call here are looking for ways to enhance that sales process. And I'll take ROI from a different perspective, certainly agreeing with everything that's already been said. But one of the places that I found friction was as I looked at point solutions to solve these problems, whether, again, conversational intelligence, team selling, automated input into the CRM, forecasting accuracy, whatever it was, every one of those required a commercial engagement with a particular vendor. And for my personal time, and then the time of the purchasing team and the supply chain team and the IT team, it became a real source of friction. And what was so magical for me, actually, when I found Aviso was not only did it provide, better point solutions, but it did that in one single pane of glass, as you talk about. But for me on my end, it eliminated, 7 to 10 commercial negotiations and pilots and just the burden of going through buying a solution that would enable our sales process. So again, agree with everything that was said from the benefits of these new tools. But I think one of the most undervalued benefits from a return on investment perspective is just the simplicity of the commercial process to onboard a technology like a VSO.
I've become a huge fan of the term single pane of glass, even within our internal teams. And after the question, I'll say, can you give me a single pane of glass view for, this function? So, as we get to the home stretch here in our panel discussion, one of the things I'm reflecting on hearing from all of you is that folks who are not doing this today, revenue leaders or business leaders who have not even started on the journey with AI in 2022, are now going to fall behind the curve a little bit faster. And if companies like Honeywell, which have transformed themselves so many times, and others like Johnson Controls over several decades, are able to embrace the power of AI and analytics, then everybody should. So my last question for you, and perhaps I can start off with you on this, Brian, is what would be some practical 2 or 3 tips you would offer to revenue leaders who are looking to catch up quickly by applying AI to manage this environment in 2022 and 2023?
Yeah, so I got a couple practical tips. One is, don't wait. NBC, it's perhaps cliche, but there's no better time to get started than now. If you haven't started, you've got to get in and look at all the tools available. Certainly, I would recommend, from my experience, the capabilities provided by Aviso, but you got to get started. But I think on a parallel path, you have to plan for success, particularly if you're a small company. And it'll come back to something that Charles said earlier, and that is, on a parallel path to enabling with technology, you really got to have robust process, because I think as you grow, and I've seen this time again with smaller companies that I'm advising, is they love the technology, but they're growing so fast, candidly, that the process is loose, and without kind of the marriage of robust process with robust technology, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. So again, I'd say get started. Embrace some of these fabulous new technologies like Aviso, but don't forget process. You have to have robust process, because today, if you have 5 sales people and 5 sales support people, in the future you're going to have 5,000, and you just can't operate without robust process.
Lori?
Well, again, I have to agree with Brian. You have to have your processes before you implement any tool, or it won't be successful. But you have to start now, because if you're not starting, your competition probably is, and you're going to fall behind. And it's even more important now, and I mentioned this earlier, because we're going into much more uncertain economic times. So figure out where your biggest risk is. If you can't do everything, where's your biggest risk? And where can you apply the AI to solve that risk, and start there, and then you can branch out and add more functionality. But if you wait, you're just going to fall behind, the industry and also your competitors, and you can't afford to do that to be successful.
Thank you, Lori. Charles, so what would be your advice to revenue leaders, many of whom are getting baptized by this second, I guess, gray rhino crisis, as some are calling it?
Yeah. So at first, I want to very much echo what Brian said about the process and how Lori echoed it, because if you don't have a process, I feel firmly sales is half art, but half of it is science. And it can't just be, I'm a really good salesperson, I'll just go out there and do it. It doesn't work, especially when you're thinking about the number of deals in a pipeline that people are working on. And that's why that focus element you get from a good tool like Aviso is so important. But as you do that, I think the biggest piece of advice I would say to anybody trying to roll something like this out is make it about the seller. Don't make it about management reports. Don't make it about, I have to explain this to my boss. Make it about, hey, how are we using this to be smarter about the deals we're pursuing and how we're doing it. And then the second big piece of advice I'd give is be patient. Be patient with the AI, because what happens over time as the AI learns more about your sales team and individual sellers and their habits and how they behave, it gets more and more accurate. And, at first it's okay, but as it gets more and more of a timeline of your team's behavior, the AIs get spooky good at it. One of the ones I worked with once, we had 4 years of data in it, and it was scary what it would know and how accurate it was. So that I just say, even if it's not giving you exactly what you want out of the box, give it time. That's one of the great things about AIs. They learn. The more data they've got, the better they're going to get.
one of the things that you're reminding me in hearing all three of you on this last question is that our human ability to learn and keep improving has to keep pace with the pace with which AI is learning and improving and getting better. And certainly looking at DAL-E and a lot of these other AIs out there that are now able to generate images from a description of a line, it's sort of a reminder of the frontier we're in. Would you, I'm just going to open the floor up to all, three of you. We have about 2 or 3 minutes left. Would you have any other thoughts you'd like to share from your journey with AI? You've all been using AI and advanced analytics now for several years. And I think that for a lot of the VentureBeat audience that is used to seeing the power of AI in R&D and product, hoping that this session gets them all excited about using more and more AI technologies. Any other closing thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
I'm just going to reinforce something that Brian said earlier about looking for a platform versus siloed products, because he mentioned how complicated it is for procurement and for IT and for himself to do all those negotiations, and also IT to do multiple integrations. So I think when you're looking for a solution, it's really important to look for a platform solution which gives you much better a total cost of ownership and much quicker ROI than trying to implement a bunch of point products. And I just can't emphasize enough how important the point that Brian made is, which is why I wanted to reinforce it one more time.
And I'd agree with that point. I think Brian had a very big issue with that. Yeah. I would say one more thing, which is that as you look at the tool and the platform and how you're going to use it, really think about how you'd use it in a coaching environment, because how you use the coaching is really going to impact how the salespeople feel about it.
Brian, did you have a closing thought on this?
I did. Just back to the point that Lori was reinforcing on my point. And she touched on it early, but as we go into this recessionary environment, the competition internally for funding, again, you find the technology that you fall in love with. You don't want to find a technology that you fall in love with 7 different times and go back and try to find the money to do those things. There's going to be extraordinary competition for funding internally. And again, reinforcing that kind of one single pane of glass, one commercial negotiation. I think it's a really important point, particularly as we're going into this new and very difficult environment.
Thank you so much, Brian, Charles, and Lori, for your time here today. I feel like there are several spin-off sessions we can have on this topic. I'll summarize by saying that for all the audience that is listening to this, that AI is very real for the sales function. It's here, it's been proven, and the world's best companies are using it. You can do a lot more with less with the power of AI. With that, we'll call it a wrap. And I'd like to thank you all once again for this extraordinary session and for sharing your expertise and wisdom with our audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that wonderful panel discussion and meeting, Charles and Brian. Of course, if you'd like to learn more about Aviso AI, you know where to go. Go visit their sponsor profile. There's a lot of value in there just waiting for you right now. All right, so we now have a wonderful fireside chat. This is with Sissy Chow, VP and GM Assistant of Google, and Jana Eggers, CEO of Neurologics. They'll be discussing how Google Assistant processes, outcomes, and learnings that can apply to anyone We're ready for some great takeaways. I think this one is going to be an absolutely fascinating chat. So over to you, Sissy and Jana.
Hi, I'm Jana Eggers, CEO of Neurologics, and I'm really excited today to be here with Sisi Xiao, who is going to talk to us about Google Assistant, which is the dream of everybody with AI, is to have that perfect and natural assistant. Sissy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first, and then we'll jump right in.
Hey, Jana, so nice to see you, and thank you so much for hosting me at Transform. I'm super excited to be here and talk about something I am extremely excited about, which is the future of Google Assistant.
Terrific. And what people don't know, possibly, is while you're running Google Assistant, you actually came from the AI side, and that's a big leap from ads. Sorry, see, I messed up there. You came from the ad side. So coming from ads into Google Assistant, that seems like a big leap. Tell us a bit about that in terms of what it meant as far as a technology fit, what it meant as far as an organization fit, what it meant as far as your career fit.
Yeah, Jana. First of all, I think both ads and assistant are just huge challenges. And I think that what I'm excited about it fundamentally is taking technology, advancing technology to solve user problems. And there, I think both things are fairly similar. In the assistant space, what I'm excited about is specifically voice technology, which encompasses both speech recognition and natural language understanding. And we already see the promise that Assistant has to help users, get understood. So we, for example, have worked on work to help people with speech impairments communicate better. We also have reached people like my kids who use voice to ask questions every day, like how far is Pluto, or how long ago did dinosaurs live? And, even every day as a working mom, I also use the Assistant to multitask and get things done while I'm driving and my hands are busy. I just think, this technology space is so novel and interesting, and it's just the beginning. What's also common about both my ads work and Assistant is that I like to challenge the assumptions. I like to take new technologies that haven't been used a particular way and apply them to real world problems. In ads, I used AI to build the first self-driving advertising engine in apps. And I think that, that same challenger spirit of taking AI and applying it to voice and helping users have that perfect, natural assistant is something that I'm super excited to be working on.
Well, so you talked about two things there. You talked about the natural language understanding, and then I love how you referred to ads as a self-driving engine. Those are two big technical pieces that we have different challenges solving. So I'd love for you to back up, and you're a computer scientist. This is a leaning towards technical crowd. Love to talk more about the technology, and in particular, what you see as really important for the technology, specifically for Assistant.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that we're grappling with every day and figuring out how to wrangle the latest and best research in order to take that technology and bring it to the hands of users. If you think about the Assistant as a category, Google Assistant actually launched about 6 years ago, which if you think about any of the mature technologies that we have today, it's actually still fairly new. The internet was at one point new, email was the beginning of that. Then we had mobile and fast access in our pockets. And now, for a while, we've been burgeoning the Internet of Things, right? Making our homes smart and adapt to our needs, whether it's, in the morning, my routine getting up and the machines and devices that need to interact with me during that routine of getting ready. So I think it's still early. I see the trajectory of Assistant is similar. This core technology stack has some major tailwinds behind it. With machine learning, we'll talk about large language models, but the exciting renaissance of machine learning as a category and how it's being applied to speech and natural language understanding. Users also are increasingly adopting more devices in their environment, whether it's on their wrists, in their ears, in their cars, in their homes. And all of that device proliferation is also a tailwind for assistance getting more helpful for users in more places. And the final tailwind I would just call out is there's so many users who are underserved with their information and access needs. We talk about users who aren't literate, who can't read, who want to interact with voice and want to still get information. And so in India, for example, we have nearly 30% of our Hindi queries are spoken to us through voice. And so if you think about like reaching users who can't yet get all the things that we have in terms of technology access and making voice a democratizer for that access, it's really a compelling area to be continuing to invest in and continuing to develop.
So you're talking about different modes, text and speech. You're talking about context, so the devices that are pulling in context. I'd love to go that deeper about where you see that machine learning and AI needs to go, and how that is going to help transform Assistant. Your vision for the next few years of what Assistant's going to do as that device proliferation happens, as the technologies and the capabilities start to come together.
Yeah, this is absolutely what we're thinking about every day, is how do we harness that technology and bring it to solve user problems. First of all, like stepping back, right? ML has had a humongous renaissance in the past, like probably 10 years. I was reflecting to someone who I worked with that when I was in school learning to be a computer scientist, like we didn't have ML class, right? We didn't have a class where you code ML. And that was about 20 years ago, which is, not that long. That dates me. But back then, ML was in papers. It was theoretical. We didn't have the engines and the servers and the computers to run these and train and produce these large models. And a lot of things have buoyed this renaissance. First of all, our compute capability, data is becoming all digitized. Like there's a whole cloud thing that's happening where businesses are becoming digitized. And all of that is like really rich fodder for applying ML to all industries, whether it's, I worked on it in ads, but there's also, medicine and fraud detection. And there's so many areas that ML is creating new value in all lanes of business. As applied to Assistant, I think the holy grail is how can a computer understand humans like another human understands another human? And that's an audacious, ambitious goal. And not only figure out, did we hear you correctly, but what did they mean? And I think that's really hard because human language is fairly ambiguous. We rely on a lot of cues when we speak to each other that are very inherent to us as human beings that computers don't have, right? Computers don't see the way we see or hear us the way that we may necessarily process. And so we need to teach to the computer, like, how is this human expressing themselves and what are they really trying to say? Because that's what this product endeavors to be. It endeavors to be a natural and conversational assistant, like an agent that we've all seen in the sci-fi movies, the agent that really gets you and figures out stuff for you. So one application of ML that is really exciting is in that speech modeling area. And so, we talk about understanding humans. Well, we're speaking English. There's many languages in the world. And in fact, in many environments, people speak multiple languages. And, taking the example of India again, lots of people speak something we internally call Hinglish, which is kind of a mixture of Hindi and English. And so we've demonstrated through new modeling techniques that we can train our ML models to basically learn English, understand English. And it's not like a very heavy engineering task. It's like we have these really large language models that have kind of interpolated or understood what is inherent to almost all human language, and then just applying some samples and some data in English so that it can quickly learn, this unique mixture of languages that people speak. So this is just one of the really exciting ways that ML is really changing how we think about the boundaries or the constraints of what this technology can do.
What I love about that example too, Sissy, is that, and a lot of people that are not used to using AI, haven't quite gotten to that marriage. The AI tool that you get isn't always the one that you need, and you have to adjust it in those ways. So your example of, hey, now I have to adjust something, maybe something that understands English and something that understands Hindi, and marry those two together. And that's really common, that mixology that happens with AI. So thank you so much for that example, because it's a really good one. The place that I wanted to go to next is, paint everyone a picture of how you see that vision of the assistant. When we talked earlier, you talked about it being a natural conversational helper, and you've given us some examples. Can you describe a little bit as a leader how you're presenting, setting those next goals, and that where you're going to go with this, so that people are inspired to deliver that thing that we're all going to be delighted about?
Yeah, there's so many ways to talk about, what's exciting. So I'll just break it down into 3 major categories. The first is the core nugget of conversation, right? How do we create a magical conversational experience for our users where the computer truly understands what you're trying to say and adapts to you instead of you adapting to the computer? And here, at I/O, we announced some new innovations around understanding the imperfections of speech. We say, and we pause and we correct ourselves, and we're ambiguous, and sometimes we don't pronounce words correctly. That's just the way people speak. And so we're on a long trajectory of, for example, understanding when you say listening for longer when you're clearly thinking and haven't formulated what you want correctly. And those are very subtle interactions, and we're still working on getting that right. But what we want to get to is like zero pressure when you're speaking to the assistant. You want to feel so fluid and natural when you're speaking to an assistant that is trying to help you. So that's the magical conversational piece. The second is proactive and personalized. Really great assistants don't wait for you to ask them to do things. They do things for you, and they're specific to your needs. Nobody wants a generic assistant. Everybody wants a personalized assistant. So what are some of the use cases that we want to build? So for example, I'm a busy mom. How can I use my time in the car effectively? Can I reorder food so that when my kids come home at night, like we're all ready to eat instead of having to cook or figure out what's in the fridge? How can I tell my husband that I'm on my way home while I'm biking, and he knows what my ETA will be, and have that like easily accessible via my watch, for example, on my wrist through voice, almost like a transponder. There are ways that we want to engage in dialogue with my kids around what they're learning at school, what they're curious about, and having almost like the knowledge of the world at the dinner table with us, so that we can ask questions while having a debate about dinosaurs or science or whatever it is kids are talking about. That's one way. It's like, how does it personally make my family life really great? Then there's the sort of busy professional. How do we help that professional who's in transit, going from train to bus to catching a flight, and the transit and communication loop? How do we solve that? Hey, we notice that you're going to be late. Let me tee up a thing that says, do you want to tell the people you're meeting with that you're going to be late? Oh, by the way, do you want to message them through your messages, or do you want to send an email? And noticing that and proactively in the moment helping you is another avenue we're exploring. And finally, automation. So we talked a little bit about IoT, but so many things are manual work, right? So if I am trying to get a workout done, I have to set up my Peloton app, turn on the fan, set my music right, et cetera, et cetera. And like all these daily routines that people do in their homes can be done automatically through the assistant. So these are just some of the ways we're thinking about the use cases, and we want to have the user feel like their life is more productive, happier, less stressful, as the assistant's picking up a lot of these tasks or chores that people do with technology. And the final one we talked a little bit about already is just that bringing access to information and access to all those services through voice to all of our underserved populations. I talked about, literacy and how voice is a democratizer there. But I also wanted to highlight a project that I feel really inspired by, which is our Project Relate. And basically what Project Relate does is it helps people who have speech impairments because of illnesses be able to communicate with their loved ones. And basically, technically, what we're doing is we're training essentially a personalized speech model for that user. So when the user says something that to a regular listener probably doesn't sound intelligible, the computer is able to take what that user said and convert that into something that their loved ones can understand and communicate back and forth with them. So it's just a very powerful, frankly, a very emotionally deep, like deeply resonant place where we're actually bringing a voice to people who have lost their voices, again, through technology. And so it's very, very exciting and very inspirational what else we can do in this space.
That's amazing. You've definitely got me dreaming. So I can't wait. We only have a couple of minutes left. So what I'd love to ask you is, what are the two things, you're talking to some of the best leaders in technology here. What are the two things that you'd love for them to take away from our conversation and, make sure they write on their board and reference back and think about as they're building the technology for tomorrow?
Yeah. This can't be done without the right team, and building the best team of people is my number one advice. Like, this is hard stuff. It requires, in my mind, I term them pragmatic dreamers. Like, you want people who can dream big, but you also need people to be in the trenches, daily figuring out what is the right architecture to build, the next voice engine. Like, how do we fit it to be on device and not run down the battery? I mean, there are real pragmatic engineering challenges to that dream, right? To building that. So like, roughly anywhere I go, as long as there's a device that understands me and I can access my personal assistant, it's an ambient assistant that I can talk to. Like, that's a really cool, like, futuristic view of what we want to build. But the pragmatic part is like the how is, architecting it correctly, having rigor around a very still fragile technology, right? We talked a little bit about large language models. They understand stuff in a way that we don't really fully understand why they understand it and can produce the results that they do. And so we're wrangling with a new sort of magic. And how do we wrangle with it? How do we use it? Sometimes we get so enamored by the technology that we forget what it's for. And I think keeping the users, what are we really trying to do for human beings? And what are we trying to make better for them? And being really opinionated and focused on that. I think sometimes, voice can almost be like, a technology in search of a problem. There are real problems that people have that I think this technology can solve. And it's the constant marriage of user problems to what the technology can do as we advance the sort of the frontier of the technology. That's what is exciting, is that it's constantly innovating and constantly moving forward, and keeping users at the focus, always solving real problems for users would be my second bit of advice.
Sissy, that is such amazing advice and such a journey there. Talking about how new we are with the technology, challenging assumptions, making magical conversations for your assistant. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. We really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks for having me, Jenna. I could talk for hours on this topic. I'm super excited for where we are and the opportunity we have broadly as technologists to move this category forward. So thanks for having me, and look forward to talking with you in the future.
Thanks so much, Sissy, for that wonderful insight. So we're going to move right along to the next session. This is a panel discussion with Typeform and Intercom on how to bring humanity to online interactions at scale, to unlock growth and loyalty. And you can get access to all of this incredible value just by clicking above to get to the next session. All right, so we have a really great conversation up next. Carrie Sanderson, Chief Marketing Officer of Typeform, And Anna Griffin, Chief Marketing Officer of Intercom, will share examples of brands using easy-to-deploy, no-code technology and human-centric conversational design to drive deeper conversations and connections with their customers. Of course, if you have any questions for our speakers, remember to utilize that type chat box on the right. So right now, please welcome Carrie and Anna.
Hello, thank you all for joining our session titled Treating Humans Like Humans, How to Generate Loyalty with Conversational AI. We have a lot to cover with our panel, so I'm going to dive right in. My name is Sean Engel. I'm a managing director at Top Tier Capital Partners. We're a venture capital firm that invests in as an LP in venture firms and also directly into companies focused on mid to late stage. Our firm is invested in a number of marketing technology companies, including Typeform. So I'm happy to be part of this conversation to learn more from our panel of experts. Rand, I'll hand it over to you to make your introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And thanks everyone for having me. I am the co-founder and CEO at SparkToro. We make audience research software. And previously, I started another company in the marketing technology world called Moz, and was there for a long time. So folks might know me from that. SparkToro, unlike your other presenters here, very tiny little company, just the three of us, myself, Amanda, and Casey.
Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna Griffin. I'm the CMO of Intercom. And Intercom is a modern customer communication platform founded 10 years ago with the mission to make internet business personal. And we believe that you do that by creating engagement and relationship with your customer. We also believe that's best done by creating an open channel between the business and the customer in the product, in the moment, on their terms. And I can't wait to have today's conversation.
Carrie?
Hi, I'm Carrie Sanderson, and I am Chief Marketing Officer at Typeform. Typeform is really the gold standard of thoughtfully designed, people-friendly conversational tools, specifically designed to help companies grow their business by engaging with their audience. So forms, quizzes, surveys, things that are embedded into your mission-critical workflows, and really taking those digital interactions and turning them more into a human connection. I'm excited for the panel today.
Great. Thanks all. For our first topic, we'll cover increasing importance of personalization. Exceptional digital experiences are now table stakes for brands. However, effective personalization at scale sounds daunting to anyone with limited time and resources. How should brands approach this problem to meet the increasingly high expectations of consumers? Rand, I'll let you start.
Oh man, I think that's a terrible idea, Sean. If I start, I'm going to say things that people are not excited about. Okay, all right. So this is an opinion. This is just my opinion. Remember, context. Very small, early stage company. There's only 3 of us at SparkToro, and I like it that way. For a tremendous number of SMB brands in very small businesses and creators who are selling on Shopify and Etsy, don't worry about it. The personalization that you need to do, in my opinion, is not, I need to make sure that when Carrie logs in, she has a different experience than Sean, or that if they browse this product in the past, they should see this other product presented. Honestly, don't worry about it. That is such small scale optimization compared to figuring out what your core product should be and who your core customer is and the positioning of that and how you serve them and how you get paid attention to by them. Those are the things I would focus on. If we're talking about personalization, my best tip is find who the best customer is for your product and service, and then speak to them with your content, with your marketing, with your product, with your landing pages. Personalize for your best customers, and don't worry about everyone else.
Rand, I love that, and I'm gonna add on to that because it's that, and then also adding the ability to communicate with them in their personal preference. When I think about how humans want to communicate and how they want it to interact, I think a lot of the trends that have just kind of followed us, and they always usually start as consumer trends. And people today, they chat, they text, they don't leave voicemails, and they are increasingly less sending emails, and they want to be real time chatting and talking, and they don't want to do a live conversation. They want to interact, real time and in the moment. And so when you can take personalization the way that Rand discussed it, and then you can add it to the preference of modern communication. How do people want to take a personalized communication? How do they want to receive it? How do they want to respond to it? I think that's today more possible than ever for companies to be able to not only personalize, but to create the opportunities to interact in very casual, friendly ways with customers that's really never existed before. So I'd focus there on their preference.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. I agree. And even for the smallest customers, though, it's that so many interactions are online, so many are digital. And it's often this one-way wall where it feels like just taking information when you're the customer. You just taking information. So how do you make that experience feel like a conversation and feel like it's a two-way dialogue and feel like they're getting something they're being paid attention to when it feels more like a conversation? It doesn't have to be personalized per se, but it should allow you to show up the way you want to show up. What's your brand? What are you there for? How are you providing that in a way that feels engaging, that welcomes people in, that makes them want to stay and give you their feedback so that you can build your business, so that you can engage. So that piece of the puzzle, no matter how small you are, or how big you are, how you show up, that first interaction, when you're that makes a big difference. Are you allowed to let your brand shine and interact based on how the customers are giving you their feedback?
Great, that's helpful.
You take all those things, and I think you get something really, really interesting. We should be chatting after this, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, Carrie, that leads in well to our next question around the humanity and online interactions. Conversation, as you mentioned, drives so much of our personal human connections in the real world. So what does it mean for brands to be in conversation with their customers? Should this be done with chatbots? Are there other ways to incorporate humanity into the customer experience? I'll let you start.
Yeah. Thank you. I've been working on brands for a long time, and a lot has evolved. It used to be a very one-way conversation. A brand person, or if you're a business owner, you would decide what your business plan was. You would write it down and you would put it out there in the world and hope people would come and hope that it'd be a static thing. And it's just not possible anymore. There are so many channels for customers to give feedback and to actually shape your business and where you're going. And part of that is treating people like people. So again, whatever channels you show up in, how are you doing that with empathy, with understanding what their needs are, by either making it easy for them to find what they're looking for, or doing it in a way that's really understanding how human interactions work, how people want to have a conversation that feels like a back and forth and not just a one-way wall of that. And so it's really that value that you get from that first exchange. It doesn't matter if you're B2B or you're B2C, you really should be thinking about every way that you can bring that humanity to the experience. And in some ways, B2B, the stakes are a little bit higher because there's a human who may be wanting to purchase your software or purchase your business, whatever business you're offering. But then you've got to work through all that behind the scenes, the other decision makers. So the more that you can show up in a human way, in a conversational way, in that give and take way, the better for your brand evolution and your brand strength and building, but also just that word of mouth and the other way the customers experience what you're putting out there in the world.
Rand, do you have thoughts?
Oh, so many. Do you want me to share them though? Okay. All right. So, Carrie, I feel like we are in agreement on a whole bunch of this stuff, but the one part that that bugs me a little bit is I don't necessarily believe that you can show humanity, not like real humanity, or exclusively through your product and your branding, your marketing, your content, your website, your experience. I think core humanity comes down to human beings showing that they have emotions and make mistakes and do dumb things and smart things and are real people. And I think that most of corporate marketing, brand marketing the last 100 years has tried to distance companies from people. Like they don't want you to think, no, okay, Elon, would you just shut up about being part of Tesla? Because we'd be a lot more successful if you weren't the face of this brand. Like you're a very polarizing figure and you're really hurting, whatever, our stock price or right. And so there's like this almost disconnect. And I think that if you want to be human in your brand, you have to be willing to fail and make mistakes and say and do dumb things and take positions that are not popular and be your authentic self, even if you're the CEO, and not try and be, I don't know, a corporate talking head that would appear on CNBC. Like, people can
I
tell.
definitely agree with that. I think there's an opportunity, though, there's the different dimensions, but that first interaction, are you putting something up that's a wall that feels one way? It's a piece of it. Certainly isn't all of it. But so much is digital these days. How do you at least get started? And there's ways that you can do that by at least showing some respect for the input that people, part of humanity is respect, like the input that they want to give you and listening and hearing and giving them a chance to kind of shape their journey, I think is part of humanity as well. I definitely agree with, you can't do it all digitally, of course, and you have to show that it doesn't always work. Sometimes, it's not the best thing. So I agree with that part.
Yeah, I like to put my my sort of whole self out there in ways that I think other companies would say, "Oh my God, don't do that. That's a terrible idea," right? Like a lot of CMOs would be like, "Rand, what are you doing? Stop!" And I think that's where the interesting things happen. That's where the humanity display comes into place, and it's going to turn off some people. And it's going to bring some people. And so if your goal is sort of maximize growth at all costs, no offense, Sean, to your wonderful asset class, which has no faults, then that works, right? And if you're me and you sort of are caring, like SparkToro cares about serving our customers, but not an entire market and not growing at all costs, but like growing the way we want to grow, then you get to make those decisions. I think this is my favorite thing about capitalism, is that like the freedom to say, I want to build a business this way versus that way.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts to add on to that?
Yeah. I'm going to keep building from the original sentiment too. And I just think humanity is that ability to be there. Be there for your customer. Be there when they need you most. Be there like when it's inconvenient for someone to be there. And that's what I love about technology. And of course, I'm going to give that point of view from an Intercom perspective, that ability, like you show up in the places when your customers need you the most. And that's usually right when they're using the product, right when they have an experience, negative or positive, and allow them, you being there, allows them to express gratitude, frustration, need, that ability to then create workflows to solve it more, real time, to activate others that need to be a part of helping this customer or furthering them, or I just think that's a piece of this too. So it's humanity is not just in how we speak, but again, it's back to my first point. It's where, and making yourself available, and then to Rand's point, transparent as well. But you can't be transparent if you're not there to even have the conversation.
That's great. We're going to switch gears a little bit, talking about data insights now. A little bit of a left turn here. So personalization is really only possible with a rich data set, as we know. But to complicate matters further, data regulations are making it more difficult for marketers to rely on old methods of targeting. That being said, is it possible to have it both ways? Can we collect data that provides strong insights without violating trust with our end customers? And I'll let you start.
Well, you can if you're there to ask them about themselves and what they need to know. That's the beautiful thing about first-party data. You get to initiate it. Pick up from the last piece. You being there and being available for conversations allows them to talk to you, to share information with you, for you to gain data and insight and understanding that can build and compound. And that's priceless in a world where we all know cookies and third-party data and the complications with maintaining that at scale and the frustrations that consumers have with privacy. So a lot of that goes to the wayside when you're actually using the information that they're personally giving you, and they'll give it to you, believe it or not, as long as it's in exchange for value. You know, if you're there to service a need or a request or answer a question, or you'll be amazed at the data that can and willfully be collected and then utilized to further build on those expectations. So I see a very robust future world of first-party data, and I think companies need to actively be looking about their strategy and how they're going to build it.
Yeah, I would agree there too, Anna. I think it's a bit of the, it's about having an exchange, not just an extraction. You feel it when somebody is just like, I want something from you. Customers don't want to be treated like a data point. So what value are you bringing? Whether it's the first time they found you on search and they want to learn more about you and they come to your website, like what's the kind of value? What's that give and take that you can provide that shows that you put some thought into what they need? And then if they just choose to interact with you, whatever that may be, like what's the value you can provide in the interaction? Don't ask the same question over and over again, or use logic to kind of take them through more quickly if they're ready. And it's really an opportunity for the customer to tell you what you want, what they want. And again, that's that richness I talked about earlier, where if you can pull that in to the conversation, you can evolve as well along with your customers telling you what they want. You have to build that trust, and part of building trust is giving and showing up where they need you, how they need you, and with that value. So I think it's going to be an interesting world we're moving into as we move more into this zero-party, first-party conversation. And it goes back to some of those core marketing principles about showing up in a give and take, not just I need something from you.
Yeah. So all right. Quick thoughts on like all the regulation, privacy stuff. First off, I think that whole thing is a scam. Like it's a scheme by Facebook and Google to essentially shut down anyone's ability to compete with them, right? They built their monopolies off, hey, we can get tons of data. We're allowed to do all these things that violate privacy. Hey, if we make privacy an issue, I bet we could control the market for like the next 20 years and prevent anyone else from coming in. Oh, hey, let's write the laws for GDPR and then have Europe enforce them. Haha, Europe, you'll never have a competitor to us. Suck it. And very effective, right? But I will say this, they took away, right, like the privacy laws, regulations, sort of lobbying, and like the effort to turn what I don't think is actually painful or harmful, like privacy issue stuff, for the most part, into concerns and into regulation. There's things that they haven't taken. And actually, I mean, this is like, I don't mean to be a shill for Typeform or Intercom, but like these two companies are superb at this thing, right? So I use Typeform. SparkToro uses it all the time. It's like for all our forms, we did it in our beta, like to send out surveys to marketers to figure out what they wanted. And then that's super personalized data. Like I have everyone's name and their email and their job title and everything that they wanted from the product and what they call the process that they use to do audience research today and where they are in their department and how big their company. Incredibly personalized data, but it was volunteered, right? And Intercom, same story. Someone comes to the website, the Intercom widget like pops up. There's someone on the other end. You're collecting all of this information about what they wanted and what they were hoping to find and what they had trouble finding. And then you can use that in aggregate to say, gosh, a lot of people who visit our website cannot find our necktie section. Like clearly there's something broken in the navigation there. Let's fix that at scale. Or gosh, we have these like 20 customers who want these very personalized things and are willing to pay for it. Should we go make that product for that? You get the idea, right? So it works both at scale and individual. There's a lot of things that, have been lost the last 20 years because of privacy stuff, but there's so much opportunity that is unexecuted on. It's almost hard to complain as a marketer.
Yeah, we see it for sure. We see that all the time. Like you said, from founders such as yourself with small companies to large companies at scale, able to collect that data and find what they need. I know, Anna, I'm sure you do as well. But Rand, you said it better than I could as a customer. Thank you.
All right. Switching gears a little bit to deployment. So we've talked about all these concepts and they all sound great, but how realistic is it? If you think if you're an SMB trying to implement all these things without vast resources, or if you're a large brand doing so without adding a ton of complexity, what's the best way to be able to approach this in terms of deployment? Rand, you want to start on that one?
Sure. So Casey and Amanda and I have talked about having sort of live chat functionality, intercom type stuff, right? And potentially having chatbots, other kinds of like, help navigation that is in context. So far, we have generally biased against it, but at some point, probably we will embrace it because there will be enough demand. But like right now, for example, about 300 people a day come to SparkToro, sign up for the free account. We're a freemium, not a free trial, and we don't gate anything. So basically, if someone were to come and there was that chat to kind of help them through what should your first searches be, what's the marketing or audience research task you're trying to accomplish with the product, you can imagine this would probably help more people get through that process successfully and have better outcomes. So are we leaving money on the table by not doing it? Yes, but also there's only 3 of us. You would need a human being, right? Building a chatbot for that, even some contextual stuff would be a little beyond us. I don't know, Anna, you can maybe speak to whether you disagree and think that we could do it, but my sense is that'd be a big project.
Well,
and then,
Ray, can do
yeah.
it, and you can do it for free at a company your size. So I'm going to set you up right at the end of this call.
I mean, that'd be cool to see. Yeah, no, a lot of my like chatbot experiences and intercom experiences is older now. Like it was when I was at Moz, my previous company, which did use intercom. And I was CEO, so I was sort of, a few levels removed from the process of implementation, but it was very successful for our help and customer service team. Right. And then in terms of deployment, so deployment for Typeform, look, friends, if you are not doing it, it's easy as pie. Like I can't even tell you, if you thought SurveyMonkey was easy 10 years ago, Typeform is like so much easier. So we just build surveys, we put them in our emails, we use them with some consultants who help us with sort of, figuring out customer stuff. We did it during our beta, like I mentioned. I do it publicly. I'll just send out a Typeform survey on Twitter and then publish the results of that on our blog, which then gets us all these great, coverage and links and all the marketing things that you'd want, top of funnel. So it's great. And it is beyond easy. Like if you can write a Word document, I promise you can use Typeform.
Thank you for that, Rand. I think what's really interesting that you're hitting on, and when you ask the question about deployment, there's the deployment for what is the experience of the person who's interacting with the chatbot at Intercom or with the form for Typeform. It needs to be beautiful, easy, intuitive, conversational. But the other audience, I think that's really important around deployment is the creator. Like who has to build this thing? Who has to implement it? And if you're not in today's day and age with the plethora of tools that are out there, if you aren't thinking about that creator experience, how easy is it to integrate with the rest of your tools, and how can they make it their own? How can they make it fit what their mission critical business needs are? Whether they're trying to grow their audience or just create some engagement or learn, all those things. If you're not making that simple, there's other options out there. So I think the deployment piece is important, and it doesn't matter how big the company is. And then I also think it has to do with how fast can you get value, right? The time to value. So is it easy, and how fast can I get value from it? Look for tools, look for solutions that get you there, because that you see the impact right away, and then you can start iterating on what you need for your business.
And a lot of that
I really think sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say a lot of that comes down to the data. I mean, you're deploying, and most deployments, frankly, today are easy. Everyone's deploying no code, and yeah, it can get more complicated if you have a lot of different rules of engagement, and also if you're trying to take this cross-functionally into other silos of the organization that have other systems, and you're going to integrate and all that. But all of that's possible, all of that's doable, and certainly, the bigger the organization ran, that's not going to be a problem for you. I find that SMBs deploy this much easier because they want an all-in-one platform that stands up, deploys easily. You're not having to fight against, well, we already invested in Marketo and HubSpot, and we need to do this and this and this. It's all in one. And but to play off carry deployment, but then you've got to be able to visualize the data, because if you're going to get the time to value, you have to make sure these tools and all of these tools. I can't speak for Rand on this one yet, but that data visualization, that ability to review the insights and to know how to act on them, and to ultimately have it integrate into real-time workflows is easy and possible, and that's how you get time to value.
Yeah,
large limits.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and Carrie, that the generally speaking, when it comes to like your products or even Spartoro, the implementation is not the challenge. Like that's not the hard part. That's not the thing that should stop you up. The thing that should stop you, and this is just for anybody who's considering like, should I invest in this, is do you have the problem that this product solves? And is that problem painful enough that the solution, whatever process is required, is worth the investment? So like for us, for example, we know that surveys are something where we absolutely need the data. We're early stage. We still have to learn about our customers. We have to learn about our market. We have to figure out what they want. We know that it's useful for our content production. We know that it's useful for when I make webinars and all this kind of stuff. So there's no question. Like we just use it. With something like Intercom or other solutions around solving customer service problems, helping people navigate through the site, helping people solve problems live via chat in real time, having potentially a sales funnel where we have people to follow up with who've expressed interest in something. All those use cases, so far, we haven't hit the barrier with that. And a big part of that, like we basically have, we have a support email, we have like a, let's watch people get through the product. How far do they make it? Who's getting stopped up? Why? What's the problem, right? We look at the searches that they perform when they do audience research with the free version of the tool, and then we're like, okay, I don't think they really understand what they're looking for here. Like, are they not a right customer, or did they not get the product? In which case, potentially a solution like that is important. But this is your job as sort of whatever CEO, founder, CMO, director of marketing, director of customer service, director of data insights. Like you have to figure this out, whether this problem is the one that needs solving. I suspect if you're listening to this particular conversation, it might be.
Right. But the one thing I would say about that is that, yes, the solution should solve your problem, but then also the how, right? You can put all sorts of different tools in place, but is it a good experience? Because if it's there to be in front of the customer, an interaction point with the customer, the way that it shows up is important as the functionality. And again, Typeform's built on that as far as, how you ask and the design and the feel of that conversation matters. And it's, as you can do whatever you want with it. So I think it's the functionality is important, but also considering that experience that the customer has when you're interacting with them is an important piece of the puzzle.
And I'll just close on the thought, I'm going to play off Rand on this one. I've yet to meet a customer that told me they have mastered customer acquisition and they don't need any more new logos and they don't need to satisfy a better customer experience. And they've got all the net revenue retention that they could ever want. Thank you. They don't need any more. Everyone, you want to convert every prospect that is going to get value out of your product, and you want to retain them. So all of these solutions are all geared for the topic of this panel, which is leveraging growth in new ways, and this is where growth is coming from these days. So,
100%.
Well,
all right, Anna, you've convinced me. I do now feel like if you're a paying customer inside Spartoro, retention is a really exciting one. Then we could potentially be like, hey, it looks like maybe you need some help searching, or like that kind of stuff. So okay, let's go.
Product tour and like let me show you how this works, and let me be there. Yeah. There's a lot you can do in the conversion side of it.
Okay, all right, I'm sold.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we're up on time. Any final few words from anyone? Any last minute plugs? Or happy to wrap up. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed the time with you all.
Yeah, it was a pleasure being on the panel with both of you, Anna and Rand, and Sean. Thank you for hosting.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks to all of you.
Check out the Typeform and Intercom sponsor profile. And now click on the above link to head over to the next session, which is Nissan's use of V2X to improve road safety and mobility. All right, we got such a great session for you next. Martin Sierhuis, VP and Head of the Alliance Innovation Lab from Nissan, discusses how infrastructure-based sensor configuration creates a multi-viewpoint picture of potential safety hazards and alerts road users, from drivers to cyclists and pedestrians, through their cell phones. And of course, if you've got any questions on this, you know to use the type chat box on the right of the session. In the meantime, over to you, Martin.
Hi, I'm Peter Wayner. I've written a number of books, and I do a lot of coverage of a lot of technical topics for websites like VentureBeat. And today I have the pleasure of being here with Martin Sierhuis, who directs a lot of the research for Nissan into new technologies that are going to just completely change how the automobile world and the freeways and everything in transportation works. And in particular, well, we'll get into that in a minute, but first I'd like Martin to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he does, and then we can start digging into a project that I'm particularly fascinated about called V2Z. Or V2X, I'm sorry.
Yeah, hi, Peter. Hi, everybody. My name is Martin Sierhuis. I'm the head of the Nissan Research Center here in Silicon Valley. I've been with Nissan for about 9 years now, and prior to that, I was a senior scientist at NASA Ames Research Center here in the Valley for more than 13 years, and prior to that at Xerox PARC. I also have a startup here in Silicon Valley on healthcare and AI, patient home monitoring. And my educational background is, PhD from the University of Amsterdam in AI. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, good. So let's dig in right away to this V2X. Can you just tell me a little bit about, what the acronym means and what you guys are trying to change with it?
Yeah, well, V2X stands for Vehicle to Everything, which basically is about, connecting vehicles on the road to anything that is in the environment, whether that is other vehicles, whether that is infrastructure, whether that is pedestrians or other vulnerable road users, whether that is to the internet. And also, in recently, we are starting to talk about vehicle to grid, right? So, including connecting the vehicle, electric vehicles to the grid, to the home. So anything that the vehicle that is on the road can be connected to through the internet or through other means of communications is what falls under V2X.
Well, that sounds fascinating. So when I first heard about this and when we first signed up to do it, I was thinking this had something to do with autonomous cars. But it sounds like this can work with all kinds of vehicles, including the ones that that regular humans drive. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, and I think that's why it's a topic that is really a topic for now, because fully autonomous driving is still years away, I think, especially when you talk about the consumer vehicles on the road. But connected vehicles are really starting to really be persuasive now in the industry, and I think that's why we can make big changes and apply technology that AI technology specifically to these problems that we can solve with having connectivity.
So why don't you give me like a quick example of like some of the data that might flow in between, between a car and a pedestrian or a car and another car?
Yeah, so as probably everybody knows, the vehicle has a lot of data it generates using multiple computers or ECUs that are on board, and part of that data is also about where it's driving, its location, its heading, its speed, and anything you can imagine that the vehicle knows about itself. And so if we could share this data, with other road users in a in a way that is fast, allows vehicles to make decisions that otherwise could not be made. This is the kind of data that we're talking about when we talk about V2X. Of course, there's also data about the engine and about the batteries, and that we can use for other purposes like predictive purposes on maintenance. But I think in terms of V2X, it's more about having people or having other vulnerable road users and other vehicles be able to make decisions based on data that other cars and other objects share with each other.
Okay, so where are you guys right now in the process? Like, are you starting to sketch things out? Are you building some prototypes? What are you starting to look for partners? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so in the research center, we are really trying to push the limits on what can we do with this data. And what is happening in the industry, in the communications world, is 5G is coming in the world. And with 5G, what is possible is not just that we have more bandwidth to send information over 5G, but it's also that the speed at which we can send things, the amount that we can send with the less time delay, less delay in the network, that allows us to now use this 5G communication to send information to the cloud and not just use direct vehicle-to-vehicle communication, but maybe use the mobile network, just your cell network, to provide fast enough data transmission that we can actually do computation in the cloud or on the edge and provide AI that is actually not running necessarily on the vehicle, but running in the cloud and allowing this interaction between multiple participants in the road, what I call multiple agents, to happen seamlessly and with AI in the background that can coordinate this information for the right purpose. And we are working now with some of the road authorities here in the Bay Area, specifically with the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, with UC Berkeley, and with some of our other partners here, to work on scenarios and applications of this kind of technology and AI that allows us to create more safety applications in intersections, for instance, or on highways. So that's the research that we're doing right now.
So, like, when autonomous cars were first talked about, the way my brain started to approach the idea was that the AI in the car would kind of be independent and completely located within the car the same way a human is, and it would just be kind of a replacement for the human. But it sounds like you guys are imagining that there's actually going to be a network and the cars are going to gain information perhaps from the cloud or other cars, and then they're also going to share with each other. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the way I think about it always is, human beings are, in my opinion, the best intelligent agents that we know of. And human beings, they have a big brain and they can reason by themselves and make decisions and do things. But the real interesting part about the human, I think, is that we're social and things happen in teams. Things happen together. We can do more together than we can do on our own. And I think in terms of other intelligent agents, whether they are artificial or, collaborating with humans, I think if we can allow intelligent agents sharing information with each other in order to make better decisions together, I think we will, create better solutions and definitely solve some of these safety problems that we currently see on the road. And I'm always reminded that, actually in 2020, there were 7,000 pedestrians killed in the US. And if you look at 2021, that number actually has increased by 13%. There's an overall, increase over the last 15 years of deaths. And I'm not even talking about people in emergency rooms and other accidents, but just deaths. It has increased tremendously. And I think that if we can use technology like connecting multiple agents to each other, we can help this problem, hopefully. And we don't have to wait to fully autonomous.
Well, it kind of suggests a kind of interesting calculus, because I think what people are always asking is, can an AI be as smart as a human? But what you're really kind of, I think, getting at here is the AI is going to have a lot of different information, and it's going to have a lot more information. It might know, for instance, that there really is a pothole 200 yards down the road, or it might know that there's a pedestrian who's just stepping off the curb, or it might know, that, something's happening around the corner. And a human, for all of our brilliance, can't know those things if we're in our own little pods. And so that to me sounds like one of the most interesting features of this.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And this is the kind of scenarios that we're working on. So, and whether that is a human-driven car, but most human-driven cars today, have ADAS systems, have cameras, and as vehicles become more and more automated, they will have more and more sensors. And what if we can put sensors in the infrastructures, like a camera in an intersection? And what if we can fuse all that sensor data coming from the car and from infrastructure sensor in the cloud, right? Using some AI in the cloud that can fuse that sensor data and then enable the AI in the cloud to use that information about what I call a shared world model, a model about the world that we can share with everybody in that world, so that everybody can look at the world in the same way, which is really what you need in order to now communicate about that world with each other. And this is what we're trying to develop. And we actually have developed on an edge computing using 5G communication, so that we can do it within 40 to 80 milliseconds, can communicate this information to each other, fuse the sensor information in the cloud, share it with others. And this way we can have people look around the corner, right? We can have cars, see things that they otherwise won't be able to see. Even though they have LiDARs or, cameras and radars, they can't see around the corner. But with this kind of sharing, you could provide this information.
So, I guess this is something you guys are beginning to think about, although usually at this stage it's all about the technology. Like, how are we going to be able to fund the sharing? Is there going to be a business model that layers on top of this? Have you even begun to kind of imagine how this would work? Or maybe we all just give away the data and that will end up working well enough?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to me, this is actually what we're starting to work on this year. I realized, a while back that there is one thing about doing research and creating new technology, and creating AI capabilities and then making the technology work and prove that it works. That's, of course, from a research center point of view, that's why we're here, what we're doing. But there's another part to this, and that is to understand, how can we make this work in the real world? What is the business model? I always say, if nobody can make money, the technology won't come to fruition in the market. So we need to find ways to have this kind of multiple sharing of information between multiple agents, whether that is cars, pedestrians, bicyclists, emergency vehicles. And we have to have this infrastructure put in place, these cameras and the 5G infrastructure and the edge computing. And who's going to pay for this, right? So I see two problems. Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to use it? And how can we get people to actually use this information, right? How am I going to get pedestrians to download an app to get the information from other vehicles, or to send information to the cloud to share with other vehicles? How am I going to do this? This is not a simple problem. And we are starting to work together with partners, telecommunication partners, government partners like the road authorities and the TOTs. How can we create this partnership between these multiple angles or multiple, partners? I see it as a triangle, right? And how can we, make this world to work in the real world. Of course, if Nissan has a solution for Nissan vehicles, that's great. I mean, I'm all for it, and we're going to do it. And we can provide Nissan customers with a wonderful experience in the vehicle and tell them that their vehicle is more safe on the road. But we also need to share it with other people. It can't just be with Nissan vehicles in order to make this work for everybody. So how are we going to do this? This is the kind of problems that we are starting to think about with our partners this year, and hopefully, we can come to some solution that makes it work for everybody. And because only then will it actually come to fruition, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's when you look back at the history of open source, there were some people at the beginning who said it would never work, and that's not exactly true. And then there are some people who are kind of idealists and said, oh, we can just share everything and that'll always work. And what you see, what's kind of evolved in the marketplace is kind of an interesting hybrid mixture of sharing with a little bit of financial incentive in the right places. So like when I think about my car, I would want it sharing, its location and especially the direction it's going and how fast it's going, because I'd want as many people to know as possible. And if there was some way that was going to stop them from running into me, that'd be great. But, other details like you talked about, the cameras on the intersection, well, that might get a little bit more complex.
Yeah, and I think privacy is, of course, a big issue that everybody immediately thinks about, right? How can we make sure that privacy is still, there? These are tough problems, and the one thing that we are taking into this research is, for instance, our sensor information from the vehicle, the camera infrastructure. The camera in the infrastructure with its, with its ability to see the entire intersection, right, and everybody in it. That camera doesn't have to share the actual images of the intersection. But if the AI on the edge, right, if the AI on the camera can only pick out that there are pedestrians in this location and a bicyclist in this location, and can share only that information, not about who it is, but only that there is a bicyclist, and it has this speed and it's going this direction, and the pedestrian is walking on the sidewalk and not in the street, but is going to change direction and going. If we only share the necessary information, first of all, we lower the bandwidth needs. We don't need to have the images being shared to the cloud or to the edge, and we only need that information to reason about that there is a pedestrian. It doesn't have to be any personal information. And I think that's what is really necessarily. There are some standards already, that SAE is working on. The J2735 standard is about sending particular messages, and that information can be extended with messages. And that is necessarily for now coordinating between these agents. But we don't need to go into personal information. So that's something I think is really important for people to understand.
Well, I'm absolutely excited because, I think you're looking at this with the right angle, you're thinking about the right problems, and you're really bringing something that has the potential just to completely change what it's like to drive on the roads, and also to walk alongside them and make it possible for everyone. So anyways, it looks like our time is up. So I just wanted to say thank you to Martin and for just telling us a little bit about the project. And I'm looking forward to finding out more and see, what you're able to make happen.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. It was really nice talking to you, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and see you next time.
Thank you so much, or dare I say, dankjewel, Martin, for a wonderful presentation. So we go from Nissan to Toyota. Next session, we're going to have Brian Kursar, CTO of Toyota, discussing their award-winning voice assistant platform. Click the above link to get access to this session. All right, so our next and penultimate session of the summit is a presentation by Brian Kusar, CTO of Toyota. Brian's going to discuss the software development journey, including key learnings and challenges of bringing these software development processes in-house. And you know the learnings are all in the challenges, so I'm really pleased he's doing that. Of course, if you've got any questions at all, utilize that type chat box on the right-hand side. But in the meantime, over to you, Brian.
Hello, Transform 2022. My name is Brian Kursar, CTO of Toyota Connected, and today I'm here to talk to you about Hello Toyota, OK Lexus, or really how and probably even why Toyota Connected built its own award-winning virtual assistant platform from the ground up. So first, we want to start back in 2016. Toyota Connected is actually the software innovation engine for Toyota. It was a brand new company that really was created to focus on data science, AI, and ML, but really was looking at how do we bring new capabilities around connected vehicles and create an environment where software engineers could thrive. So Toyota Connected is located about 1 mile away from our mothership. We did this on purpose because we wanted to establish Toyota Connected's own identity. So things like compensation, career paths, and culture, those are the things that we needed to do and really focus on to attract the best talent to ensure that we had the right folks to create these amazing multimedia experiences. So when we look at Toyota Connected and the things that we decided to build in-house, we really looked at what we call the high ground, right? Which is our connection to our customer, the electrical platform, right? The multimedia and that in-car experience enabled through a connected vehicle. And finally, what we call connected intelligence. This is where we take the data that our customers have provided to us and have opted in to allow us to use and really make that data work for them, right? It's all about bringing together intelligent convenience, mobility, and safety services to our customers. So when we started this path, we really looked at really 4 areas to really kind of focus and drill down on. One was our Safety Connect and Mobility Services platform. The second was really how can we improve that multimedia user experience? Third, within that, if we drill down, that virtual assistant. And then finally, looking at over-the-air updates and our ability to constantly take feedback from our customers and turn that into actionable features and bug fixes. So in 2016, I think one of the things that really was hitting us hard was that our multimedia experience was our #1 issue when asking customers, what are the things we could do to improve about the experience in our vehicles? Our IQS surveys were suffering, and ultimately we were paying insane amounts of money for platforms that, again, were not really getting a lot of favorable reviews from our customers. So we knew that we had to take drastic measures. So in 2017, we started looking at what we had in front of us, and we asked the big question, could we do it better ourselves? So we had some really awesome engineers that went out and they created an iPad app. And they literally took this iPad, they put it on our dashboards, and they started driving around and really started, collecting feedback, right, from our customers that were also part of this program, as well as our developers. Now, collecting feedback is one thing, but actually doing something with it is a completely different thing. And so where that kind of landed us is really, after about a year, we had something that we could show to Toyota Motor Corporation Japan and really ask that question, could we be provided the accountability to be able to take that customer experience in our own hands and really create that awesome experience for our customers, but do it in-house to really kind of just take it to the next level. So what was really amazing is that after everyone saw what an awesome app we can create on an iPad, they actually gave us the okay to do it. And that is really where our journey started. Now, the big thing though is that it wasn't just the multimedia, it was also our virtual assistant. And that also raised a lot of eyebrows. You see, because Toyota Connected, we had 65 engineers focused on our virtual assistant, okay? Compared to some of the tech giants who have over 10,000 engineers working on a similar product. Now, granted, it's not just automotive, but this was something that I think everyone questioned, and they really asked the biggest questions, which was, could you do it as good, if not better, than some of the tech giants? And so I like to tell people, our team, we're small, but we're mighty, right? We are laser focused, and we were able to really kind of take on that challenge. And ultimately, we proved the world wrong, that we could, with a very small team, create an awesome experience for our customers. So the biggest question that keeps coming up, right? Why build in-house, right? We talked about owning that customer experience, but really being able to provide those updates, whether it's a bug fix or a new feature, but being able to provide that constantly so that our customers feel like they're getting additional value from their vehicles. The other big thing is that we wanted to reduce the dependency we had on our suppliers. Now, granted, we love our suppliers, right? But some of the big tech giants, they have very strict roadmaps. And this was something that is very hard to influence. So to give you an example, right? I personally am vegan. And when my family goes on a vacation, we are looking constantly for places that provide vegan options, restaurants, retail stores. And ultimately, right, this is something that's super important for my family. Well, I thought, wouldn't it be great if I can send vegan POIs directly to my head unit? Now, if we were working with a third-party supplier, we would have to get in line, wait months, create a change order, and ultimately, have to negotiate with other companies to see, is this a feature that they also wanted? Well, through Toyota Connected, because we owned our destination assist, we were able to implement a vegan option, which is now really the first in market. And I think it's probably the only in market multimedia system that can provide this. This is something that we were able to do in just 2 months. And the only way we were able to do that is by having that relationship, right, with partners that were willing and the ability to really kind of own our own fates, right? Draw the lines on where we want to go, take that roadmap and integrate new and exciting services for our customers. The last piece really is just that we always wanted to make sure that this is a Toyota customer experience, right? When you're working with some of the tech giants, right, you're really constrained to their ecosystem and their world. But we wanted to say, you know what? This is a Toyota customer, and we want to provide them a Toyota customer experience. At the same time, we want to be able to integrate the best-in-class features, including integrations like with Google POIs. So it's a Toyota UI, a Toyota navigation system, a Toyota virtual assistant that provides you the same POIs that you would get from Google. And that's what our customers want, and we were able to deliver that. So conversely, if a customer were to say, play Al Green, what happened was initially we would return CeeLo Green because that was the most relevant artist at the time. However, that's not what the customers asked for. And so with our new virtual assistant and our over-the-air updates, we were able to now fine-tune the algorithm to make sure that if someone actually said Al Green and there was an exact match, we would return that to the customer. And that really kind of speaks to why we did our own virtual assistant, because it allowed us to have that platform, that control for the customer experience, to really own that customer experience, and then take that feedback and make the product even better. So now, after 3 years, the team basically was on the edge because we were just about to launch, and we wanted to know, what is the press going to say about this? What is the public going to say about this? We got some initial reactions from the dealers that was super positive, right? But was it going to be good enough? Thankfully, right, the press gave us some awesome feedback, right? 1 million times better. I don't think in my entire career have I ever been told that I improved anything 1 million times better. So I think that it was just such an awesome thing to see. Also, our multimedia system with the virtual assistant got a top 10 in user experience in Ward's Auto. And we are continuing to get so much positive feedback. And really it kind of speaks to our mission, which was to improve that customer experience by hiring top talent and focusing on what the customer needs are and providing that feedback loop, right, of what the customer feedback is and bringing that into either features or bug fixes and doing it in a timely manner. And so the only way we would be able to do this is by really, truly owning that platform and investing in software engineering talent. So it's been an honor talking to everyone today. And also, if you want to learn more about Toyota Connected, check out our website. We are hiring. And with that, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Brian. It was a wonderful presentation. We're going to finish off in the metaverse. Yes, the metaverse. That's our next session. Do click that link above to get access to the session, Building for the Metaverse with AI, with Anton Bohr, Managing Director, Fundamental AI Research Lab of Meta AI. All right, so we are at our last session of the day, and I promise you it's a really good one. Antoine Bourg, Managing Director of Meta's Fundamental AI Research Lab, presents some research advancements from their AI labs that are essential to creating foundational technologies that will enable the next era of computing. If you have any questions whatsoever, please remember to use that chat box on the right-hand side.
Hi, I'm Peter Wayner, and I'm here with Antoine Bourg to talk a little bit about how the metaverse is going to be built and just how we're going to need AI to do a good job and actually to make it work in the first place. So just a little bit about me. I've written, more than several dozen books, and I do a lot of journalism for places like VentureBeat. And now Anton works for Meta, which of course is the new name for Facebook. And I'll have him, Anton, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your role there, and then we can get into talking about the metaverse.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. Antoine here. I'm at Meta. I've been at Meta for a long time, actually more than 8 years now, always in the AI research lab that we call now Meta AI. And right now, I'm actually co-leading the lab and trying to build AI that are going to advance the state of the art, but also going to impact our product, and in particular, AI that's going to help us to build the metaverse, right?
Yeah, so one of the things I was really interested in this topic, and that's why I wanted to really do this conversation and set it up, is like I'm trying to imagine just how we can build the metaverse, and I'm thinking that the AI is going to be just a crucial component to this. So, Antoine, how do you see it starting to fit in, and what do you think its main roles are going to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and we're just at the infancy of the metaverse as well. So there's a lot to be built, a lot to be seen. But I think what's going to be very important for us in our vision is that the metaverse is going to be populated with a lot of people, a lot of real people that's going to go in the metaverse, do things, have experience, meet each other, etc. And it means that if you want to go to the metaverse and have an amazing experience, it means that there are a lot of things to do, a lot of offering, a lot of content that you can consume. And this content will be built by some companies, but also we want it also to be built by anyone, also by small businesses, etc. So for us, a big success of the metaverse will be if anyone is able to build its own space in the metaverse, build its own like 3D house, 3D shop, is able to compose, I don't know, songs, do some arts, etc. And so being able to do that will require to have AI that are going to help you out, because we cannot expect that everyone is going to become a 3D expert or a 3D coding expert in the next few years. So the metaverse will be also coming with a lot of AI helping you build spaces, AI helping you compose music and sounds, etc. And in the last Inside the Lab event about AI that we presented in February with Mark Zuckerberg headlining it, we talked about a demo concept that we call Builderbot that does just that, right? You go in a space that can be completely empty, and then you're going to talk to a bot that's going to help you build. You get to put a table, put a little chair over there, change the lighting, can we have like some food on the table, etc. And the stuff appears in front of you in 3D. This is just the beginning, but it's going to be big and completely powered by AI.
Well, I'm actually kind of grateful for that, because while I can kind of doodle on the paper, if I want to actually have the space look pretty nice, I would like to have some help. And there's just a limit to how much I can do by myself. So like, do you imagine the AI working on kind of a low level with just the artistic things? Do you imagine them working to create content? Is it, just give me like you talked a little bit about how it might, populate a table or design the room. Is it going to be mainly aesthetic, or is it going to go beyond that too?
Yeah, no, it's going to be, and really, imagination is the limit, right? If we can match in 3D what people can come up with their imagination, I think will come a long way, right? So I think there are two big segments of application where we feel that we need to create content and AI will be helpful. There is one that's the metaverse and virtual reality as the future of work. And so then you could actually imagine a lot of places, objects that are actually work related. Imagine, for instance, building digital twins that allows you to have the same as a motor, the same as a vehicle in a 3D that allows you to, if there is a failure, etc., you can actually go in virtual to try to detect the failure and then go back to the real world. A lot of also work application will be around designs, architecture, and art, where you can really very easily visualize some spaces, visualize some buildings, even work through them, do some modification, and see what it happens in real time together in the metaverse. So this is going to be very big and powered by AI. The second big line will be around entertainment, and it's already starting, right? A lot of the metaverse experience right now are around gaming, right? As usual with digital revolutions, gaming is the first driver. And so we have a lot of games and simulation and game where people are coming together to play together. But then it's going to expand from gaming to more narrative experience, like movies, TV series, etc. And from that, I think we're going to have a lot of new experience, a new way to do entertainment in VR. And really for all these applications, the creators will be equipped with AI that will help them really make their imagination a reality.
Well, I think that's going to be great because the imagination is really, I think, the core of what we're trying to do with all the different entertainment and the different games. And we're trying to interact and we're trying to connect and make bonds with people. But what often happens, what's always been the case, is that, you know, if you wanted to take some story that was a big part of you and you wanted to turn it into a movie, you needed a lot of money and you needed all these people to work in Hollywood. But it seems like AI is going to just bring the cost of doing this much lower. And that's going to just open up so many opportunities for people to just share the stories and the ideas that are floating around.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's exactly one of the ambition. And when we talk about the metaverse being a creator for an opportunity for creators and the creators economy, this is exactly that, right? We expect that the barrier of investment of entry to create content, shops, games, even like digital assets is going to be much lower, especially if it's powered by AI, and many more people will be able to enter the space and have a shot at it. Something that's also related to this, and that is heavily powered by AI, it's about language. And also in a way where we want to create content that is different, inclusive, and given a shot to creators, something very important is the language you speak. Right now, we are speaking in English, right? And English is the language of the digital world mostly. It's the language of the web. And if we go at the metaverse the way we went for the web, the metaverse will be mostly English spoken, which means that if you don't speak good English, or if you're not comfortable in English, you will have harder time to build your space or to get exposure or maybe to get revenue from it. So what we try to build in the lab is a metaverse that's going to be speaking all languages by design, so that whatever language you speak, you can go in the metaverse and your avatar will be able to speak any other languages. So let's say right now, if we were in the metaverse with this capability, I could be speaking French and you will hear my avatar speak with the perfect English. That's a dream. And my avatar could also speak Zulu, it could speak Spanish, or it could speak Icelandic or anything like this. So really, really imagine a place where you go and you don't need to worry about language and you can just go and create what you want to create.
Formidable. C'est bon. Okay, so I start to see that a lot of the different areas that we think of as kind of separate in the regular world are really just starting to blur together. So you talked about people maybe working in the metaverse. And of course, you talk about entertainment. And then I'm sure things like education are going to be coming in. I would think that could be a big help overall. I'm sure it might be confusing at times, but the next thing you know, someone might be having fun and then they'd be learning at the same time or maybe actually working. I mean, do you have any desire to kind of separate these different parts of our world, or do you think it's going to be better off if everything kind of just ends up in this big meta space?
Yeah, I mean, this is a complex question because sometimes if we want the metaverse, a place where there is a lot of opportunities. So sometimes you build something with some goals and intent in mind, and people use it differently, right? So, WhatsApp, for instance, was not made at the beginning to be necessarily used for business cases, right? It was for family sharing, but it's used by many businesses around the world. So, so that's the way technology goes. But I can tell you that for now, the way we think about this is the way that you could separate in the metaverse, first of all, by the appearance you choose, right? So if you're like gaming, or if you're with your friends or with your family, maybe your avatar is a bit funny, is a bit like weird, maybe it's not even realistic at all, maybe it looks like you look like a robot or something like this, right? Whereas if you go to more work setting where you have meetings with colleagues and stuff, you might have an avatar that's much more, I would say, classic. And I don't know what classic means for an avatar, so you need to bear with me. But really something that is a bit less weird and it's a bit more formal, I would say. So, I think the way you dress up, right, in the real world, right, you're not dressing up the same way if you go to work than if you go to a party. I think in the metaverse, you will also have an avatar that have different shape or appearance. So then the question is that, are they also going to be in the same spaces or different spaces? I think both are going to happen. And something that's very important to remember in the metaverse, that is not going to be one place, right? Metaverse is the extension of the web that goes from 2D to 3D, a web where you're embodied and the web where you can really be part and immerse in the experience. But it's like the web. There will be multiple places, multiple universes that are connected together. So maybe there is one big one where you can work and also play, but there will definitely be a metaverse that will be work only, pretty sure, and there will be definitely metaverse that will be game or entertainment only. And maybe some other that will be a bit more generic, when you can also do a bit of both. Like in the real life, where sometimes you have workspace that looks a bit like entertainment spaces, and sometimes you have workspaces that don't look like leisure spaces at all.
That's certainly true. I mean, there are some places, some startups that look like they have a lot more fun than actually do any work.
Yep.
But, their argument may be that they get more work done that way. So who knows? Okay, so right now, I mean, I think everyone who's going to be watching this is just going to be seeing it as a kind of a 2D video. And people have been talking about what virtual reality is going to look like for, decades now. And they've been starting to build out all these little prototypes of these glasses you might put on. How do you see that evolving in the next year, next few years? Is there going to be this big jump forward into the space? Or is it going to be kind of a gradual thing where it's available in both 2D and 3D? Do you have any kind of vision right now, what you see happening?
Yeah, I mean, we see the way to access the metaverse will be through a series of devices, and there are different types of them, right? I think there are three main types, I would say. One is virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality. And the difference is that virtual reality, this is the one we know usually. So you put your headset and you're immersed in a 3D space. We try to push the device capability so that it really looks like more and more real. We talked about a few weeks ago about devices that can pass the visual Turing test, right? Which is when you put the glasses, the headset, and when you remove it, you don't realize that actually it was not the real world. There is still work to do, but I can say this is an increasing slope, right? We're making steady progress, and the new generation of headset gets better and better. So then you go to mixed reality, which is a bit similar, but the difference is that your headset is also able to scan the environment around you, the room you are in, for instance, and it's like you have cameras that are watching around what's going on, and they reproject inside the headset what's going on. So with that, you basically see a video, real-time video about what's going on around you. It's projecting inside the headset in 3D, and then you can put 3D asset and 3D object in top of that. So this is really called mixed reality. You see the reality and you can augment it. For work use cases, once again, work around design, architecture, it's going to be big game changer because you could be in your office and you just put your headset and you will see a big model appearing in front of you and you can work on it. These mixed reality headsets are also going to come pretty soon because the technology is not very different from virtual reality, except that you need to have this technology to project back. So this is coming. This is already there. There are also headsets already, and it's going to improve. The last category of devices, this is augmented reality glasses. And this one is the bigger bet, right? This one is like you will have glasses. You would have glasses like mine right now, so very thin, not heavy, that could allow you to project yourself in the metaverse, which means that glasses that are very small like this, that you could wear all day, every day, would allow you also to mix the reality that you see through the screen and also the virtual asset and be able to project you there. So this is, I think, the big ambition, right? Because if you build these devices, I think they will be very popular, and I think they will really show that you can do almost everything that you do with your phone, everything that you do with your computer could be done through glasses. That would be huge change in computing, and we're working a lot in this, but this is the more risky part because we need to find new display, we need to find new batteries, we need to find new chip, and we even need to find a new way to access and to interface the content through the glasses, because if you have glasses, you don't have a screen anymore, you don't have a keyboard, and you don't have a mouse. So how do you access information online or on your laptop without all that? Well, we don't really know.
I mean, I know. I think that's kind of the interesting thing. So if you were going to kind of connect it to anything that we know, like what we've seen in a movie or what we've seen in traditional technology, like what do you think is going to be the next way we start to get into the metaverse? Are we going to, which technology, which one of those three do you think it'll be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one we're really betting on a lot is the glasses, right? So it's augmented reality glasses. That's a lot of the AI work we do, also directed towards making them happen, trying to build like AI that can work alongside you with the glasses to help you actually navigate. So this is a big bet. At Meta, we invest a lot of research to make them real, right? So we take this very seriously. And so if I had to take a bet, and because I also want to believe that it will happen, I will really tell you that the AR glasses will come. What I cannot commit to is when, right? Is it a matter of years, of decades? Well, we need a bit more time to check that.
Well, I mean, I agree. You can't always tell what the future is going to bring, but I'm absolutely amazed at the work you guys are doing. And I think that the idea of using AI to really help people, populate the space and to decorate it and to make it reflect themselves is really, a great opportunity to kind of democratize the space. So I think, it's a good example of how AIs are going to be our friends, at least in the future.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're out of time. So I just wanted to give a really warm thank you to Antoine Borde for all of his hard work in this area, and then also for just taking a little bit of time out to come and tell us about it.
Thank you very much.
So thank you.
Thank you so much, Antoine, for such a great presentation. And it really was the best way to end this incredible day of content. We're going to see you tomorrow at the last day of Transform, the Edge and IoT Summit. We've got an incredible last day. It's led by Lumen. So please make sure you check out Lumen's sponsor profile to get more information about this wonderful organization. And remember, keep your eyes on the prize. Check out that leaderboard. The more you're interacting with the event platform, the sponsor areas, the chat, the more points you're building, more chance you've got winning an amazing prize. So we'll see you tomorrow for the last day of Transform 2022. Bye for now.
can the right partner help your business build something wonderful? Intel helps you get the most out of all your data by deploying intelligence exactly where it provides the greatest value, powering your business to find new insights, unlock new revenue, and discover fresh opportunities from edge to cloud to data center and everywhere in between. Together, let's accomplish something wonderful.
At Capital One, we combine the power of a machine learning model with a cloud-based multi-region infrastructure, making banking better by strengthening the reliability of our mobile app so that our customers can stay connected to their money anywhere. Learn how we're using a cloud-native architecture to fuel the future at CapitalOne.com/cloud. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
The world seems to be spinning faster. New technologies are accelerating our lives. The markets are changing faster and faster. New products and services are disrupting old ones, and huge companies are disappearing. We all feel the speed and the need to compete. Our demands have increased in our private and business lives. We want instant answers and no waiting time. Time is the most valuable asset of human beings. Nobody wants to waste it for poor service. Customer experience has become a crucial competitive factor. Cognigy makes life easier for everyone and service a magical experience. We will help you to improve your service quality and cut costs at the same time. Our platform based on AI delivers personalized experiences at scale. Conversational service automation is the future of customer service. Cognigy AI. No time to waste.
AI itself is at an inflection point, and for a decade,
we have set the pace for innovation unmatched anywhere in the market. Together, we're pushing the limits of both human and machine.
The power of AI is now in the hands of anyone that can use it.
We're pushing the limits of how AI can become even more aligned to the needs of every business.
We're seeing a fundamental shift towards making AI more accessible, faster, and impactful for businesses.
Tools like Data Robot can offer us an awful lot of potential.
How is our collaboration helping our customers?
This opportunity to build turnkey solutions that help customers accelerate their time to value.
Complete enterprise operations for all parts of the model lifecycle.
You can ensure that you'll never be in the dark when it comes to tackling AI bias.
Welcome to Data Robot AI Experience 2022.
AstraDB, a flexible database as a service built on the open source Apache Cassandra project. It's a NoSQL distributed database that is known for its high scalability and availability. Data is partitioned and distributed around a cluster in separate nodes to increase performance, and replicated to ensure your data is always available. You can interact with your data using REST, GraphQL, and document APIs using Stargate.io, an open source data layer included in AstraDB, or directly with the Cassandra query language in a CQL console. It comes with a generous free tier to get started, and setting up a database is simple. Just log in with an email, Google or GitHub account, select Create Database, give it a database name, key space name, and select the cloud provider and region you prefer. That's it. You now have a 3-node Cassandra cluster in less than 5 minutes. For more information on AstraDB, check out the other videos in our AstraDB playlist. If you want to learn more about Cassandra, check out our Intro to Cassandra crash course or catch one of our weekly workshops. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.
Labelbox is a training data platform designed to help you iterate better. Use active learning to find model errors and prioritize labeling high-value data to improve performance. Accelerate velocity through collaboration, labeling automation, and low-code model training integrations. The result is a streamlined workflow, high-quality data, and consistently more accurate models in less time for less spend. We're trusted by Fortune 500 enterprises and leading companies fueled by AI. Try Labelbox for free today.
How does change happen? How did a revelation by an 18th century English physician usher in the dawn of immunology and the modern vaccines that today protect everyone you know? How did two brothers with a boyhood dream to defy the law of gravity launch an era of flight where 6 million of us now take to the skies every day? How did the need for collaboration at 4 leading universities set the cornerstone of the internet that today digitally connects us to the totality of human understanding? In the tradition of these breakthroughs, NTT Research tackles the most challenging scientific questions of our time in an effort to further humanity and the lives of us all. Every day, we strive to create a smarter world for the greater good. Because at NTT Research, our mission is not just to change the world, it's to upgrade reality.
Main stage. 4, 3, 2, 1. Affirmative. Keep going, baby. Still rising. Recorders on. Keep going. Look at it go, hon.
There's greatness inside you, just waiting to be uncovered. It's a journey, a change in mindset. So let's get going. Let's grow with engaging content and a learning experience designed to help you be a better you. This is a commitment to continuous learning in an ever-changing world. Because you're an asset worth investing in. You are invaluable. Find the greatness inside you with Skillsoft.
Hey, I'm Joe, and Graph Plus AI is transforming the world and is with me every day of my life. From the time I get up, Google, what does my commute to work look like?
32 minutes with moderate traffic.
To knowing my payment is secure when I buy a cup of coffee. And when it's time for my meeting, I can see how I'm connected to the customer on LinkedIn and which connections we have in common. I can even check the latest shoes for my training session. More importantly, I'll know when it's time to buy the return gifts for Danny's birthday next month. And when I'm back home, I can find the next big show to binge on after the season finale of Westworld. As you can see, I've been doing it all with a graph, from the time I wake up until the end of the day. Welcome to the age of graph.
Hello, have you met Typeform? If you want to grow your business, you should. Typeform is redefining how brands and people connect in the digital world with vibrant forms, surveys, quizzes, and asynchronous video solutions designed to keep the conversation going so you can engage with new and existing customers simply, seamlessly, beautifully, leading to more responses, higher completion rates, and the data you need to accelerate growth. It's that simple. Want to learn more? Say hello to Typeform.